أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على سيدنا شفينا حبيبنا مرشدنا محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه وآل بيته وبارك وسلم اللهم صل على سيدنا شفينا حبيبنا مرشدنا محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه وآل بيته وبارك وسلم اللهم صل على سيدنا شفينا حبيبنا مرشدنا محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه وآل بيته وبارك وسلم Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Brothers and sisters in Islam, today we're going to cover a topic very important. It is the first ayat of Surah Ikhlas, Kul Allahu Ahad. Um, this particular presentation is going to focus on the state of Ahad, and we are going to go into the depth of the Sufi perspective as revealed by the kutubs of the Ummah of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And also we're going to do a short meditation towards the end of the presentation so that the theory and the practical aspect of it goes together. Inshallah. I'll continue to the next slide. And as you know, brothers and sisters, this is a disclaimer I put for every of the presentation on the YouTube channel, that this is the knowledge at the level of tariqat, haqiqat, marifat, and this one definitely at the level of sufiyat. And the reason I put it is because we are not here to belittle anyone or to create any confusion or any sex or anything in the ummah of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. The only intention here is the ilm that has been revealed by the kutubs, especially Kutub Baba Muhyiddin radiallahu anhu and the Qadriya Tariqat is discussed here. Surah Ikhlas itself is an ocean. This is Ilmul Behr. You cannot, we human beings cannot measure the depth of the ocean. We will discuss it in a very concise manner. Try to keep it to as small as possible. The length of the presentation, but I have to cover a lot of topics here, so it might be a couple of hours to finish this whole presentation. And again, brothers and sisters, I pray that this presentation unites us all and makes us realize our true self, and we become better human beings. Any mistakes from this presentation, brothers and sisters, is only from me, and please forgive me for that. And again, as I said before, we will have a short meditation session towards the end of the presentation. So the theory that we discuss here in the initial presentations will, the seeker would be able to experience part of that theory in the meditation, inshallah. Okay, so let me go to the next slide. So brothers and sisters, we'll jump straight into the surah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Kul Allahu Ahad. Now, the entire surah, as we all know, is Kul Allahu Ahad, Allahu Samad, Lam Yalid, Walam Yulad, Walam Yakul Lahu Kufuwan Ahad. Only the first verse of the surah, brothers and sisters, which is Kul Allahu Ahad, is the Zat of Allah. The rest of it, Allahu Samad, Lam Yalid, Walam Yulad, Walam Yakul Lahu Kufuwan Ahad, is discussing the Sifat of Allah. Okay. So I'm not going to go into the depth of the remaining ayats, but we're just going to concentrate on Kul Allahu Ahad. And as we go through this presentation, you'll understand why we are focusing on the first ayat. The rest of the ayats are just more of explanation of what is Ahad. But Kul Allahu Ahad is definitely the the punchline, if you could say. Okay, so let's go to the first word itself. Allah instructs Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which is kul. Anytime you see the word kul in the Quran, it is Allah requesting his Habib, his Nur, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to convey a message to us. Okay. Now there are so many ayats of the Quran, and each of these ayats, 6,666 verses, they are all revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to us. But why the reason, some of these ayats, for example, Kul ya hayyul kafirun, Kul a'udhu birabbil falaq, Kul a'udhu birabbin nas, there are so many ayats which says the word kul. The reason, brothers and sisters, is there is a stress there, is that when I go to a university to study, there is a professor who's there to teach me, right? Now, why I have to go to the university and study with the professor is because the professor has gone through the steps. He was a student himself few years back. He has learned it from somebody else, and then that process is going, right? So a person can join an undergrad, then go into masters, do his PhD in any subject of science or anything, and then after few years later he can become a professor himself and teach other students. Now here, when Allah is saying kul, is Allah telling his Nur, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to teach us, the seekers. Why? Because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is Nabil Ummi, brothers and sisters. Why is Nabil Ummi? Because everything that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has learned, he has got it directly from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's the reason why he did not read and write Arabic language, because suppose if Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had a teacher who had taught him alif ba ta, sa jim ha, then that teacher would inauzubillah say, I am the ustad of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never wanted that to happen, because Allah and his Nur, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, are inseparable. And Nabil Ummi, brothers and sisters, I have discussed this in detail in so many other presentations, in Miraj presentation, in Nur Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam presentation on the same YouTube channel. You can go ahead, and listen to that. Nabil Ummi means, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who was silent most of the time. Even when you look at his hadith, it is very concise. It's not long lectures. It's very, very concise words, sentences, or every word has the weight of a mountain. So, and this was the fitrah of our Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was silent most of the time in the zikr of Allah. Okay. And as we say in the Western civilization, empty vessels make a lot of noise. So definitely when the vessel is completely filled up, then what happens is silence prevails. And even in this path, brothers and sisters, as a seeker goes through his steps, slowly he becomes reserved, and then he starts going into his own self, and silence prevails. It happens to everyone who is seriously on this path. So that is the quality of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, of being silent, which the true seeker of the ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam also starts getting it. Okay. So again, going back to the word kul. Kul is, again, as we said, is somebody who has gone through the path. Okay. So Allah is saying kul, hu Allahu ahad. Okay. The word who we will come a little bit later. Okay. Because there is also a lot of misconception there of who. Kul hu. Okay. This is only kul. Kul hu Allahu ahad. Now, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam came in alam nasut. Again, brothers and sisters, different alams, alam nasut, Alam-e Malakut, Alam-e Jabrut, Alam-e Lahut, Alam-e Yahut, Alam-e Hahut. All these alams are discussed in uh, the Kalima Tayyiba presentation. So please go and through that if you need to refresh yourself. I'm not going to touch on that. Alam-e Nasut is the world of form, name and form that we are in right now. Okay. Now, Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the Noor of Allah, Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam came as the baby boy born to Umma Amina radhiyallahu anha and Hazrat Abdullah bin Abu Muttalib radhiyallahu anhu. Now, Ba Muhyiddin Hazrat, the Kutub says it very beautifully that Muhammad is the resplendent face of our Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, okay, which cannot be described. Okay, any amount of descriptions of the face of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, is insufficient. In fact, it is said that nobody really saw the true face of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Even the Sahabis, because it's beyond description. Whatever a Sahabi saw is his own reflection. Okay, so to the amount that he could get close to the Noor of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, which is Noor Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So that resplendent face of the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, who is the most praiseworthy in this world, brought us the revelation. Okay, and we have discussed this, that again the 15 unique qualities of our Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam as revealed by the Kutub. This is discussed in the Miraj presentation, and the details about the Noor itself. The Noor split into 10 parts. Each of the 10 parts has been discussed in the Surah Fatiha presentation. Okay, so please go there and read about it. I'm trying to keep this presentation as small and to the point as possible, and not trying to repeat it. So that's the reason I'm giving you, where certain topics are covered in detail, so you can go and look at that. So when we look at the word Muhammad, again, it's the name with the form of our Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, who came in Alam-e Nasut, which is a world of form where we exist now. Now, when we remove the meme from Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, what remains is Ahmad, and that is the name of our Nabi in the heavens. Okay, so again, we have discussed this in detail. I'll just quickly brush it. That the meme is again for the creation. Even the sperm of a man, is in the shape of meme, and that is the hikmat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Ahmad is Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam minus the meme. So who is Ahmad? The one who knows Allah, who realized Allah, and who can only reveal the glory of Allah. This is Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, who has gone for Miraj and is one with Allah. Okay, so again, you remove the meme from Ahmad, what comes down is Ahad, and that is oneness with Allah. Okay, and we are going back to the same verse, Kul hu Allahu Ahad. So who has experienced Ahad, brothers and sisters? The only person who has experienced Ahad is Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Okay, and that is the reason Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is Khatam al-Nabi, and he is the Noor of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let's go to the next slide. Culmination of the kalima is Ahad, which is Ahmad merging into Ahad, which is La ilaha illallah Muhammad Mustafa Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So the union of Allah and his Noor Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, which is Noor Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, is the kalima tayyiba, brothers and sisters. Now we will go to the next word, which is who. Kul hu. Now, brothers and sisters, this is, if you look at any of the tafsirs, especially the English ones, there's a lot of misconceptions here. Okay, the who most of the time has been translated, and you don't have to take my word here. You can go and do your research. Who has been translated as he. say He, Allah is one. Okay. Now this is the basic explanation of most of the translations of the Quran. And we will discuss in detail on this slide what is the problem with that explanation. Say Allah is one. Say He, Allah is one. Okay. Now, when the who word itself, it comes from huwa. What does huwa mean? Huwa means that. It is not he. It's a huge difference between that and he. Why? Because the moment we say he is a pronoun. Okay. For example, he is my father. He is my son. Okay. So you already know who the person is. You're pointing it to somebody. But when you say what is that, there is a mystical element there. You have to figure it out. Okay. Now what happens is, brothers and sisters, is because our mind is so conditioned, the moment say who and say who is kul hu Allahu, which who is he, which is Allah, that mystical element is lost. The mind concludes very fast into a state where the mind says, okay, it's very easy for me to understand Allah and say, okay, this is an entity, like a noun. Okay. Now Allah is beyond a noun. He is beyond time and space, because a noun is bound by time and space. When I say this is my cell phone or a mobile phone, it occupies a certain length, height, and width, right? And certain space and certain weight is there, right? Mass is there. But then Allah has none of these qualities. He is infinite, He is eternal, and He is undivided. So when you say Kul hu Allahu ahad, is say He is one, literally you have butchered that, you know, or I would say belittled that verse itself completely. Okay. And we have to reflect, brothers and sisters, very deeply, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in a hadith says very clearly that if you recite Surah Ikhlas 3 times, Allah will give you the blessings of reciting the entire 6,666 verses for the 3-time recitation of Surah Ikhlas. So why is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala stressed so much on that? Because, brothers and sisters, the first ayat itself is the Zat of Allah. If we understand that, we will get connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a very, very deep way. Okay. Allah says, Anahnu akrabu ilayhi min hablin warid, that I'm closer to you than your own jugular vein. But at the same time, when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam went for Miraj, the Sahabas asked Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, did you meet Allah? He said, yes. Where did you meet him? He said, at La Maqam. Now, these are two contradicting statements, right? One says, La Maqam is what? La Maqam, that there is no such place. And then Allah says that I'm closer to you than your jugular vein. So how can these two go together? So that La Maqam, brothers and sisters, that place, which doesn't exist or it's not there, is beyond our mind. And inshallah, I'll try to do the best I can towards the end of this presentation, and take the seeker through a meditation session for 10 or 15 minutes maybe maximum, and at least try my best to, so that you can experience the state of ahad. Okay. So I hope you understand that the problem with this, say He is one. Definitely, one is the basic explanation, that say He is one, and then it's not one, it's oneness, because ahad is oneness, and wahid, itneen, talata, arba, khamsa, right? That is the numbering system for Arabic, is wahid. It's not ahad. So when you say, Allah did not say in the Quran that kul hu Allahu wahid. No, He said kul hu Allahu ahad. Okay, so that's very clear. We don't have to go through that again and again. Here, one, kul hu Allahu ahad means oneness. We are one with Allah. That is what Allah is telling His Nabi. Say to my seekers, to my creation, to my beloved creation, Ya Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that say we are one. Why? Because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is in the state of ahad. Muhammad minus meme is Ahmad. Ahmad minus meme is ahad. So who can take us to ahad? Is only Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam can take us to ahad. Okay, hope it's clear. And again, the rest of the bullet items here are just stressing the same point, that if I say Allah is He, that is kul hu, who is, as we said is before, it is that has got a mystical element. I have to discover Allah within my own self. Okay, the moment I say He, it's a separate entity other than me, right? He is my brother, or he is my father, he is my son. Automatically that's a separate entity. Okay, here we are trying to discover ahad, which is oneness. So how can oneness and he be together? You get the point, brothers and sisters? It has to be that. So that is something which I have to discover within my own self. Okay, so I am the, here again, just stressing the same thing. I am the subject, which is myself, and Allah is the object behind the seven uh, heavens. So brothers and sisters, we are using on all each of these presentations the lowercase I. Okay, and as in the Shahada Kalima presentation, I have used the same concept, where the lowercase I means me, myself, the I-ness which I feel, and the uppercase I is the universal consciousness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, so I the subject and Allah is the object beyond the seven heavens, sitting on the kursi, right? This is most of the time, a lot of sects talk about it. They openly talk about it, saying, where is Allah? He's sitting on the, on the kursi, beyond the arsh. The moment you say that, brothers and sisters, you have brought Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to the object level. Okay, and that is not the way you perceive Allah, because then you're still connected to the worship of the mind, because mind is always looking for object oriented world. Mind can only function in the object oriented world, it cannot function beyond that. That is a limitation of the mind. Okay, and again there's a hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam which says Allah descends to the first heaven every night. That is the time of tahajjud. Okay, but again, if I say Allah descends, then the moment I say I believe in the what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is meant is totally different, and I don't want to discuss that here. But the point is, if I believe that Allah descends, then I already reduced him to time and space world. Okay, that something has to descend, then it's like a ball falling from the sky, due to the sense of gravity. So the ball has got a physical limitation. Then if Allah is descending, then Allah has got a physical limitation of time and space, which is not possible. Okay, and the last one is that most of the people, when they say, when you ask them, where are you praying, they say, oh, I'm praying on the musalla. They might say, oh, praying towards the Kaaba, or then saying, I'm in front of Allah. Okay, and then when you say, when you're in front of Allah, then again, you uh, unless you feel the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the nur of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam within your own self, then you are again bringing Allah down to the object oriented world level. Okay, and as we said in the last bullet item, that Allah is infinite, undivided, and eternal. Okay, and that Allahu Samad. Okay, so how can we think about Allah through this limited faculty of the mind, which has got the input of the five senses? Okay, so we cannot. So we have to find another way of how to connect to Allah, and to come to the state of ahad. Okay, let's go to the next slide. And this is just continuing from the previous slide. If I believe that Allah is eternal, undivided, and infinite, and then if I say that I'm a finite self, separate self, subject, which is separate from Allah, that is contradicting. Why is it contradicting? And that is most of the time people say, I'm praying towards Allah. Okay, I'm on the musalla praying towards Allah, so I am separate from Allah. If I'm a separate entity who can exist on my own, and Allah is infinite, how can a finite object exist when there is something which is infinite being, which is Allah, right? And we're going to go into the word of the word exist also. Sometimes we use the word exist in a wrong way. The word exist comes from the Latin word existentia, which is to project something. Okay, so for example, there's a a pencil which exists on the table. The moment I say the pencil exists, that means the pencil is a separate entity other than the table. So it has got a separate mass and separate space, and it is projecting itself as a in shape and form and name different from the table. But in the case of Allah, we cannot say Allah exists. Zubillah, we can only say Allah, He is an infinite being. He is. That's it. That. And then again, that. We always try to say that. And we'll get to it, deeper. I know this is a little difficult to explain unless one goes into meditation and start experiencing the state of ahad. So, brothers and sisters, uh, if I believe that my soul within me is infinite, and then we say, okay, I'm infinite, my soul is infinite, and then Allah is infinite, then definitely we cannot have two infinite objects exist at the same time, because that defeats the explanation of infinity. If it's infinite, it's everywhere, it engulfs everything. Okay, so there is no way that my soul, if I believe that my soul, definitely we dismantle the body. Again, the body, if I say it's finite, then and has an independent existence other than the infinite Allah, that also defeats the explanation of infinity, because everything infinite will engulf everything which is finite. Okay, and similarly we are saying, if I say, okay, my soul is infinite, then we cannot have my soul infinite and Allah infinite exist, or be together. I'm trying not to use the word exist. Okay, be together. So because Allah does not project himself, if we try to discover Allah, and that is the problem of the mind. Okay, that the mind is trying to look at the trying to figure out Allah with the object oriented uh, conditioning through the five senses. We have to go beyond the mind to experience Allah and see the nur of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in meditation. And how does this everything help, brothers and sisters? Why putting this presentation together? The reason is, Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said that the salah or the namaz of a mu'min is miraj. Okay, so all this effort is to finally make sure that when I pray my fajr, my zohar, asr, maghrib, isha, tahajjud, that I experience Allah and Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and the oneness in my prayer. And the monkey mind's thoughts and emotions and the drama and the perceptions, all that melt away as much as possible. So it is that's the final aim of putting all this information, brothers and sisters. Even the meditation itself helps one to get much better concentration and closeness in prayer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay, so what are we saying here? We say, I'm asking this question, who am I? Okay, man arafa nafsahu. Man arafa nafsahu faqad arafa rabbahu. The person who has realized his own self has realized Allah. This is the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we are going to go through this in very deep, way. Man arafa nafsahu. This particular hadith with ahad, because they go together. Okay, so who knows the true self? Man arafa. Who knows the true self? Who is hidden behind my own feeling of I-ness within me? Only Allah knows himself. Allah knows me better than I know myself. Okay, so it's always the I-ness. For example, and this is what we are saying in this slide. If a tree is aware of itself, it will say that introduce itself to me as I am a tree. It uses the word I. Okay, ana. Right? That is uh, the word ana. Now, when you write even I is just one I, right? One letter. Even in Arabic, ana, when you write it, you can make it write it backwards or forwards. Ana is still ana. Remember that, brothers and sisters. And there is a secret of ana. Okay, and I also, Alhamdulillah, even the English uh, letter I, is just one alphabet, and in Arabic it's ana, and you can reverse it, it's ana. Okay, and that's a deep meaning to that. So if a tree is aware of itself, as we said, And if it's given a mouth to speak or express itself, it will say, I am a tree. Okay, so one who is aware of oneself will experience himself, and he will introduce himself as I. Okay, and I'm again using, brothers and sisters, the lowercase I, because I'm going to use the uppercase I only when I refer to the universal consciousness, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, I'll keep that as a rule here, and that's what I have said in this presentation. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. We said before, Allah never projects himself. Okay, and again, the reason I put himself is, the moment we say himself, then we have reduced him to a noun. Okay, brothers and sisters, and that is the reason, when if we try using our monkey mind to get to Allah, most of the people cannot cannot experience Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The reason is, we have to go beyond the mind, and we always have to think about who is kul who is that which is beyond the mind. Okay, brothers and sisters, and what is, and Allah is being, he exists, he is awwal ya akhir. Okay, Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, just to give a better perception here, Musa alayhi salatu wasalam asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where is he present? He would like to see it, because he got the 10 commandments. He has heard Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala so many times. So now he, when you speak to somebody over the phone for a long time, then automatically, it's a human wish that I would like to see the person. If you're very close to the person, you feel happy when talk to a person for a long time and say, oh, and then you introduce in person. So same thing, Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, felt that I want to see Allah, and the kudrat of Allah was revealed for, I just put microsecond, it's infinitesimal, moment of time, which we can't even explain, that the Mount Sinai, it was reduced into dust, and Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, literally he died on that day. The soul had to be put back into the body of Musa alayhi salatu wasalam by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then Allah revealed to Musa alayhi salatu wasalam that, Ya Musa, whom you're searching for, that reveal it to me on the mountain, or which is on an external object, right? And it came in the form of fire, but the point is that Musa alayhi salatu wasalam was, his soul jumped out of his body, because it couldn't take it. So then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals to Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, and it's so beautiful. Musa alayhi salatu wasalam is the Nabi who has been discussed the most of the time in the Quran. Okay, and how beautiful that how Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, helps the seeker of the ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah reveals to Musa alayhi salatu wasalam and says, I am that I am within you. The feeling of I-ness within me, I am. But if you go really deep into your own self, and brothers and sisters, we will discuss it. If I say I am so and so, I have a name, I am Ahmad, for example, or say I am Mohsin. But then the moment I say I am Mohsin, for most of us, that I am is referring to the body and mind complex, which we see in the mirror. But we have to go beyond that, and then through meditation and through wisdom, the wisdom where the kutubs brought, Gausul Azam Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jilani radiallahu anhu, and the 11 kutubs of the ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the 11th form is Hazrat Muhammad Rahim Bahumuddin radiallahu anhu. Through their wisdom that they have brought, the ilm of kutubiyat, we can try to get close to the state of ahad and experience that by going through our own meditation and going beyond our identity as a body and mind complex. Okay, so again, as we said, that Allah revealed to Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, Ya Musa, go within you, I am that you feel within you. Okay, so man arafa nafsahu, see, this is exactly the same thing. Man arafa nafsahu, the person who has realized his own self. Now man arafa nafsahu, who is not really he, but that which is beyond the mind. Okay, the real I behind the feeling of I-ness. Okay, and that is the pure universal consciousness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now again, we have to ask this question to ourselves, including myself. I am no big sheikh or Sufi scholar. No, I'm just like you, brothers and sisters. I'm also in this journey. As I said before, this is ilmul Behr. We cannot measure the depth of the ocean of ahad. Okay, so we are in this together. So when I meditate, I cannot experience the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the nur of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Why? We have to go through that. You know, just as Hazrat Maula Ali destroyed all the idols in the Kaaba, and Hazrat Bilal radiallahu anhu gave the first azan after cleansing of the Kaaba. I have to cleanse the idols which are installed in my own qalb. Okay, and what is that, brothers and sisters? The false identity, which comes from where? Which comes directly from the body mind complex. When I say I am Mohsin and then I look in the mirror and say, okay, this body mind complex is that I-ness which I feel within me. That is a false identity. Why? Because that identity of the body mind complex will be completely demolished when the physical death happens. When Malakul Maut comes and takes my soul away, that body which I'm referring to myself as Mohsin is gone. It you know it's been taken for ghusl, and then people bury it, and then off you go. All your possessions are gone, inherited. Your wife is gone, your children is gone, everything is gone, your status, your position in the world is gone. Then what are you left with? So you have to ask this question. We're going to go through that in detail, on the slides. The point is that, you know uh, I, the separate self, having independent existence from Allah, and if I'm praying to Allah, if that is the mode, which is the mode of duality of worship, it's not oneness, it's not ahad, then I am already in the state of shirk, brothers and sisters. There are people, in this sex who talk about shirk all the time. And unfortunately, these are the people who say, Kul hu Allahu ahad, is Allah is one. If I say I'm an independent entity, exist, other than Allah, that itself is shirk, because I'm associating partners with the infinity of Allah. How can I exist as a finite, independent self other than the infinite Allah? I have to be part of Allah. And that is the oneness, brothers and sisters, within us, ourselves. And that's the reason, brothers and sisters, the Surah Ikhlas, when you recite it 3 times, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I'd give you the blessings of reciting the entire Quran, 6,666 verses. Even if we recite, 2 juz of the Quran per day, it will take 15 days. Think about it, brothers and sisters. And Allah says, Kulhu Allahu Ahad, the Surah Ikhlas, I can recite it, within a minute 3 times. Why Allah is stressing that you have to go deeper into this thing, the blessings that is there, right? And that is what we are trying to do here, brothers and sisters. Okay, so I want to redefine shirk here. If I say, I'm separate from Allah, then I exist an entity separate from Allah. That's, I'm associating partners with Allah. Okay, if I say Allah is one other than oneness, then that's shirk. Hope it's clear. The lower self, since it does not know the real I, which is Allah. Again, I said this is uppercase I. Remember that, brothers and sisters. The lower self I is the lowercase I here. Behind the feeling of the individual consciousness, which is separate from the universal consciousness, will develop negative qualities of jealousy, greed, self-centeredness, because the lower self I thinks that, I am this material body. Okay, now what happens? Ego rises right there. And what is ego? Ego is the false entity. I want this big house, I want this big job, I want this, big car, all this thing. There's no harm, brothers and sisters, in making money. Okay, I am also doing that for taking care of my duties, which I have to do, as a father, as a son, as a husband, right? So my point is that when you can make money, but it should only always stay in your hand. It should not enter your heart. Okay, whatever possessions you have, it should be used. It cannot, define who you are. And that's where the problem happens, brothers and sisters. The moment you take that physical, whatever is connected to the physical body. Suppose somebody is a CEO of a big, Fortune 500 company. He dies, he's done. In the grave, nobody writes the CEO, of this particular company. No, no, he's dead. Rest in peace, RIP. That's it, done deal, brothers and sisters. So, you know, um, what we are saying here is, when the worldly death happens, suddenly the I am, the lowercase I am, which I was identifying as the rich guy, the famous guy who has achieved so many successes in this world, and all those things, that is taken out in one blow. That's it, taken out from Alam and Nasut. At that time, what happens? The soul who has lived a life, thinking that my identity is the body mind complex goes through a trauma, brothers and sisters. And we will discuss that, in the future slides. Goes through a trauma because a sudden identity crisis has happened. So what are we trying to do here? I'm trying to get into the state of ahad even before I leave my body. I have to, change my mental conditioning so that I stop thinking that, when the person I see in the mirror and say, oh, this is, Mohsin or whatever it is, the name given, is the real self. No, I have to go beyond it. So when I dismantle that, when the time of death happens, brothers and sisters, and Malikul Maut comes and takes my body, separates the soul from the body, I have no identity crisis. Okay. And there happens a tussle, brothers and sisters, when the Malikul Maut comes. It's explained in the hadith of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in so many places that, a moment or a awliya of Allah who has been living his entire life being a true abd of Allah, doing the zikr of Allah and following the commandments of Sharia. For him, it's a happy moment. The soul jumps out from the body. And for the person of this dunya for whom the identity was his body, and he's doing his competition with the world, right? Comparison and competition and all this thing is because of identity from a body mind complex, brothers and sisters. Okay, for that person, the soul separating his dream is over right now, right? Because that was his dream. Suddenly that's being brought to an end, and the Malikul Maut literally rips the soul apart. It says that every nerve in the body, it experiences the pain when Malikul Maut rips it out. Okay, so let's keep continuing, brothers and sisters. And that's what we are saying here in the next slide. We just touched on the previous slide that, if I die, I will know, oh, this here's my body, right? Our soul will be like 6 to 10 foot on the top, and watching over the entire proceedings. We will see who's crying, who will say, okay, you know what, it's good this guy died. If he was not a good person, whatever it is, you know, who is giving ghusl, who's praying, who's crying, who's going to the grave, you know, who's taking the janaza on the shoulder, all those things will be seen. So our question here at this point is that when the body is dead, right, there's no heartbeat, there's no brain function. After 2 hours the heartbeat dies, the brain function stops also, the mind is gone, right? Because the mind is connected to the brain. Now then, who is feeling the I-ness? Oh, my body is being given the ghusl, which means that, brothers and sisters, that I, when when my body is separate from the soul and somebody is giving ghusl to my body, which I think is me, no, the I-ness still remains, right? And that is the I-ness that we are talking about here. That I-ness is very important, brothers and sisters. That I-ness takes you to ahad, and we'll go through that in the presentation, as we said. So what happens in the grave? We all know that we are questioned, the 3 questions in the grave, which is man rabbuka, man nabiyuka, man dinuka. All these 3 questions, brothers and sisters, what is the answer for that? Kalima taiba, la ilaha illallah Muhammad Mustafa Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's it. That kalima, if that becomes our true identity, that is the reality of our own self, that's it. That one kalima is enough to answer all the 3 questions, brothers and sisters. Now, for the individual soul who has lived in duality, right? I separate from Allah, he, them, comparison, right? Running around behind the dunya because he wants to show that how, intelligent he is or how smart he is and all those things, right? The false sense of my own self. That is unfortunately the tragedy. Because I have the false sense that, I'm defined, the success is defined by material, how many, properties I own, or how many millions or billions of dollars, or, gold or whatever I own, or the status or the power that I have. That's all object oriented, because the person who is running behind it is also thinking that this object oriented body mind complex is my own self. Okay, and that's the tragedy. But what happens when you go deep within your own self, and when you touch the reality of Allah and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the nur of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, nur of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam within your own self, that identity of body mind complex starts weakening. It's a gradual process, brothers and sisters. If I have to run a marathon of, say, 26 miles, I cannot run it in one day. I have to start somewhere, half a mile, after a week, 1 mile. That's how it happens in this case also. you know. So we have to spend time for our meditation. We have to spend time to understand wisdom, and then that is how our mind gets tuned, and then finally the mind subdues itself, and then we cannot beat the mind into submission, brothers and sisters. It's impossible, because the mind will come with dual twice the amount of force if you try to do that. So you have to, the wisdom tames the mind, and then meditation takes you slowly and slowly to higher level of consciousness which is beyond the mind. Okay, so let me go to the next slide. Now, Shaitan, it's a good example, right? As we said before in other presentations, learn from, even if he's your enemy, learn from him. He had an identity problem. Oh, I am made of fire, and he's made of, Adam is made of earth. What does he think? He thinks that the body consciousness, fire and earth, right? So both fire, earth, water, air, all these are the, and ether, there are the five elements through which entire universes are created, and the soul has nothing of these, right? It comes directly from the Zat of Allah. The soul is connected to the Zat of Allah, brothers and sisters. Okay, and the unfortunately we have sects in our Muslim ummah, right? They say, oh, we Muslims believe in Tawheed. They don't even know the complete explanation of Tawheed, but they say in arrogance, we believe in Tawheed, we believe in one God, that one God separate from his own self, right? As we said, it's a state of shirk anyway, right? How can a finite self exist with the infinite Allah existing at the same time? There's no way. So the Muslims, again, this is just for trying to make ourselves go deeper. Very easily they say, oh, somebody's bowing in front of an idol, oh, he's a kafir, he's a mushrik, he's going to hell. I'm the believer of one God, and I'm going to heaven. And these people, they say this is Islam. Brothers and sisters, is much more than that. You have to, demolish your own self, the false identity within your own self. Once you take this journey, brothers and sisters, literally, that's what I have experienced. You don't have time for anybody else, because for me, my biggest problem is my own self. I have a lot to cover in this life before my soul separates from my body. So the journey is deep. So, and we'll go through that, but so the point is that the ego oriented Muslim thinks that oh, I am believing in one God, right? And Jannat is for me, I am the inheritor of Jannah, and these idol worshippers, they are all going to hell. Okay, because I am believe in the Quran, and I'm the follower of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And that is ego, brothers and sisters. And why? Because and guess what he wants, and most of the time, Baba Muhyiddin Hazrat says it very clearly. He said people are praying to Allah for heaven, and he says don't work for wages to get into heaven. You are going to be disappointed. You can't get work for wages and get into heaven. Okay, you need to have wisdom. You need to be one with Allah and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam if you need to get to heaven. Now what happens, you know in Jannah, again, this is just few words, right? Fried fish is there, huris are there, beautiful palace is there, right? I remember one time, one brother was saying, oh, if you say Subhanallah bihamdi Subhanallah azim, definitely it's Allah puts a tree in Jannah, and then the diameter of the stem of the tree is 500 years of horse ride. And then what, you just keep on planting trees in Jannah. Brothers and sisters, you are still in the object oriented world now. What how big is your Jannah now, right? Now that doesn't take you to the Zat of Allah. You are cultivating, you're a farmer in Jannah now. But that is not what the meaning. The meaning is you have to go into your own meditation and experience Subhanallah bihamdi wa Subhanallah azim. That particular, the grace of that particular verse has to be experienced by the Salik. That is the great part. Now, if you get Jannah, Alhamdulillah, but you don't work for wages for that, brothers and sisters. And why we are stressing on this hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is very, very deep, and it's a very decisive hadith. Now, a person who has got atoms worth of pride, brothers and sisters, even when I'm putting this presentation, if I am saying, oh, the great guy, giving a big lecture, that's it, he will not enter Jannah. This is Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He did not say, few atoms. He said one atom. That means we have to work on it. And brothers and sisters, this particular arrogance comes very clearly from the false identity of the body and mind complex. And this is the fastest route to get into ahad, brothers and sisters, to purify one's own self. Because the moment you drop the body mind consciousness within you, all the negative qualities are dropped. Why? Because Allah does not have a body mind complex, brothers and sisters. The moment you say, Allah, and this is, we covered this very deeply in Miraj presentations, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam when the final veil has to be lifted, he said, Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, leave your body behind and come. And that's where the merger happens. This is Ahmad going into Ahad. So brothers and sisters, we have to follow the same path. Okay. Now, what happens? A person who is in body consciousness, Shaitan is in ecstasy, brothers and sisters, because you know what? He has challenged Allah. He said, you know what? I will take all these Bani Adams with me to hell. Okay. And what happens about the, you know, the Kutub says, as we said, the Kutub says, get rid of this, the negative qualities, that by getting rid of the false identity of your own self, and Shaitan becomes powerless in front of you, brothers and sisters. And that's very deep. Okay, you don't have to look at Shaitan as an enemy and start fighting with him. Definitely say A'udhu Billahi Minash Shaitan Rajim, but he is not the true enemy. Your true enemy is your own self. Your nafs is much, much more powerful than the Shaitan. Shaitan is an external entity. He is made of the jinns. Okay, he's made of fire. All that is fine. But you have your own nafs, which thinks, I am ana rabbukum ala, like Firaun thinks, and and the moment that I converges or merges back into the source, which is Allah and Rasool Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that I loses his identity, and then you are no more connected to the hymns and the fancies and the attractions and the attachments of this world, brothers and sisters. Okay, and that is ahad, brothers and sisters. As we said, the nafs is 10 times more powerful than the external enemy, which is shaitan. Okay, so that is where we have to work on. As Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the Sahabis were coming from a battle, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that you are coming from Jihad Akbar to Jihad Asgar to Jihad Akbar. That the external battle that you just fought with me was the Jihad Asgar, which is the lower battle. The bigger one is with your own nafs. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has pointed out so many times about these things. Okay. Now, how do I subdue my nafs? Nafs, as we said before, by realizing my own true self, not the body mind complex, brothers and sisters. Okay, which is veiling my true identity. Now we're going to go through this. Kaaba. Kaaba is a cubical structure. Is in Makkah tul Mukarramah. At the same time, we are also told Qalbul Mu'min is Baytullah. That the qalb of the Mu'min is the Bayt of Allah. So where is that Baytullah? Within me. So definitely we all go for Hajj and Umrah. We experience the closeness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when we go to the Kaaba. Why we experience the closeness? Because the tajalli of Ya Jamil is falling continuously on the Kaaba. The Kaaba itself is not a very architecturally, beautiful structure. No way. The Taj Mahal in India, or there are so many other monuments, they're much more better designed. But when a Muslim goes for the Umrah, or for Hajj, when he sees the Kaaba, he's mesmerized by the beauty of the Kaaba. It's not because of the physical beauty, brothers and sisters. This is also Allah is revealing you what's the color of the cloth of the Kaaba is black. There is a secret there. You have to go beyond the object of the Kaaba. That is the reason the blackness of the night, darkness of the night. What is this? It is mystical. You have to go beyond the Kaaba, the physical Kaaba. Why is that this cubical structure, which is not even a perfect cube? When you look at that, it's not even a perfect cube. Why is it so mesmerizing for the eyes? The when somebody goes for pilgrimage, it's the most beautiful sight, because again, as we said, the attribute of Ya Jamil is falling, the beautiful, Ya Jamil, Ya most beautiful, is falling on the Kaaba, and our eyes gets mesmerized by that. Now it is not coming from the five senses, brothers and sisters. It is beyond the five senses. When you look at the Kaaba, the feeling of the closeness is not coming from the five senses. Why? Because the five senses seeing a cube which is not even a perfect cube. So how do you feel the beauty is coming? It is again coming from the consciousness level, brothers and sisters. We need to know that. Okay. So similarly, we're just going to go through this. There's a point I need to make here. before Fateh Makkah happened, Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, before he cleansed the Kaaba, 316 idols around the Kaaba. Think about, brothers and sisters, the Quraysh of Makkah, they had their ihram clothes. And it's like what Isa alayhi salatu wasalam, faced when he wanted to cleanse the temple in Jerusalem. There were coins which are minted in the temple and the coins which are available outside in the market. For one coin in the temple, you have to pay 10 times, 50 times more the cost of the market. And the priests were making good business out of it, right? So similarly, what happens here? The cloth for the ihram, the Quraysh leaders used to sell, and they say, oh, this is very expensive, you have to buy it from us, then only your Hajj or whatever they were doing at that time, going around the Kaaba, around the 360 idols, even it was happening at that time, but completely, definitely there's so much of falsehood which crept in. But the point to make is, there were women walking around the Kaaba naked because they didn't have clothes, brothers and sisters. They said, okay, you can't buy the clothes for ihram from us, then just walk naked, go. So that used to happen in the pre-Islamic era. And what are we saying here? Similarly, in our hearts, we have this attachment, the false identity, and this is where we say existence. So existence, brothers, when I say I exist, right? And Allah, as we said, He's saying He is a being. He doesn't have to project Himself. Exist means it's projecting something, brothers and sisters. So what am I trying to do here? Projecting what? The I-ness within myself, so that I can compete with the 7.5 billion monkey minds who is also doing the same thing, brothers and sisters. And that is what we think is the reason why Allah brought us into this dunya. وَمَا خَلَقْنَا الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ, that I have not created the jinn or the mankind except to worship me. And here we are in egocentric battle with each other. We have lost the sense of purpose here, brothers and sisters, because we have veiled ourselves from our own true identity. Okay. Who cleansed the Kaaba, brothers and sisters? We all know about this thing. Maula Ali, the Sahabis were there. Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam told Maula Ali, commanded him, go and break the idols. Some few of the idols were huge, 14 foot, 15 foot. So Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam told Maula Ali to climb on his shoulder. Ya Allah. To climb on his shoulder, and then he started, dismantling and breaking down these idols. It is said, Maula Ali said, when he climbed on the shoulder of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, from that height he could see the 18,000 created universes. He was looking down upon it like a bird's eye view, brothers and sisters. Now, do you think that the form of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, people still say, what, he was just a nauzubillah, inauzubillah. I fear myself when I say this. I have to put a point across, but he was just a human being, inauzubillah. How can you stand up just on a human being who's maybe 6 foot or something? Even the Mawjizah of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. If a tall man would come in front of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam would look taller. Always the case. That is the Mawjizah. So what do you think? Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's height was increasing and decreasing? No. The form of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was beyond Alam Nasud. Our form, Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's form, was different. Why do people don't understand that? He did not have a shadow. He was the Nur of Allah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And we covered that in deep, in other presentations, brothers and sisters. So the second thing, Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, once the Kaaba was cleansed with all the idols, everything cleaned, the Sahabas cleaned the entire place, right? Washed, cleaned it. Hazrat Bilal radiallahu anhu, mashallah. It's a dream to hug Hazrat Bilal radiallahu anhu, if I can. When Bilal radiallahu anhu climbed on the Kaaba, because Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, yeah, Bilal, go and give the azan now. This is the muazzin of Madinah Munawwara, muazzin of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. He climbs on the Kaaba, and look at the hikmat of the Sahabis, the greatness of the Sahabis, the way they thought. Ya Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, I'm standing on the Kaaba. When I was in Madinah Munawwara in your masjid, I was, praying, facing the Kaaba and making azan. Now I'm on top of the Kaaba. Where do I face myself and give the azan? Sisters, this is the secret. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Ya Bilal, face me and give the azan." Brothers and sisters, think about it. I'm just going to say it, but think about it. Go into your own meditation. Spend some time. What does this verse say? He's standing on the Kaaba, the Bayt of Allah. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Ya Bilal, you're on the Kaaba, face me and give the azan." So what do you think about the reality of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? And this is Hazrat Bilal radiallahu anhu. It's so beautiful. Ahad, Ahad, Ahad. He was being tortured by the Quraysh of Makkah, the Mushrikeen of Makkah. He came from a different, country, as a slave. He knew, and Hazrat Bilal radiallahu anhu was asked this question, that why, you could have got a little bit easiness in your torture, why would you keep on reciting Ahad? He said that Ahad word made the Mushrikeen in Makkah, the leaders of Makkah, the most angry. So he would recite that. Brothers and sisters, who else is qualified to give the azan? Who started the first azan of and Masjid al-Nabawi and stand up on the Kaaba, on the roof of the Kaaba and give azan? It's only Hazrat Bilal radiallahu anhu was qualified to do that because he knew the meaning of Ahad, brothers and sisters. He faced Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and gave the azan, standing on the top of the Kaaba, the physical Kaaba, brothers and sisters. Brothers and sisters, again, I have covered this thing in other presentation, but I want to just say it here. Night of Fatah Makkah happens. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's house, Ummah Khadijat al-Kubra's house. It was given to a Baddu, a Bedouin, not even for a leader of the Quraysh tribe, because before Fateh Makkah, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is in Madinah Munawwara. So to belittle the Sahabis and to belittle Nauzubillah Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Mushrikeen in Makkah, the leaders decided, okay, let's give this house of Ummah Khadijatul Kubra and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to a Baddu, to a good for nothing fellow. So you know what? Let the entire world know that the person who's occupying the house of Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam is just a common man, or maybe below that, just to belittle, Zubillah Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What happens Fateh Makkah night? The Sahabis, after they cleanse the Kaaba, they prayed the namaz, the salah, they go run towards the house of Khadijah al-Kubra. They cleanse the house. They ask the person to vacate because the real owner has come in. And here's Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's wife is with him. He could have spent the night relaxing because the entire mission has been successful now. It's close to the end of his mission, brothers and sisters. So many years of torture and abuse and hardships which we can't even think of. Now it's the night of, success. And what does Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam tell the Sahabis? They were thinking the Sahabis cleaned the house. They thought, okay, our Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam is going to go and stay in his house. No, he says, pitch me a tent, brothers and sisters. Where? Next to the grave of Ummah Khadijat al-Kubra. Because, brothers and sisters, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam knows. There's a saying even in English language that behind every successful man there is a woman. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam knows. And it is a tragedy, brothers and sisters. Nowadays, when you go for Hajj and Umrah, you'll have millions of Hajis doing the tawaf, going to, Muzdalifah, Mina. How many people walk towards Jannatul Mu'alla, to the grave of Ummah Khadijah al-Kubra, say salam to her, recite Surah Fatiha or Yasin, or sit there and thank the mother that this prayer that we're doing, this lecture I'm giving, whatever it is, it's all because of her blessings. Brothers and sisters, we have lost the essence of Islam, brothers and sisters. And the Ottomaniya Khilafat, which survived for 800 years, till 1924, it had preserved the house of Ummah Khadijah al-Kubra. Then the expansion happens so that the signs can be destroyed. The house was demolished, brothers and sisters. And that's what we are saying. Hope the birthplace of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, which is now is a library, as if you need books now. Everything is on the internet. Why can't they preserve it as a monument? No, because that's a sign of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. There was a time, brothers and sisters, during the Uthmania Ottoman Khilafat, 800 years, it survived. That for every azan, before the azan, the muezzin of the Kaaba would go walk down to the house where Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was born, to Ummah Amina radhiyallahu anha, the beautiful mother, our mother, the mother of the universes, and he would recite salawat and recite Mawlud and then come and give the azan in the Kaaba. All that is lost, brothers and sisters. Now we have the Quran and we have the Hadith in the printed form, so we don't need the closeness of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. How can I get the closeness of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam if I don't get close to Ummah Amina, Ummah Khadijat al-Kubra, Ummah Fatima Zahra, to Maula Ali, Maula Hassan, Maula Hussein, to Abu Abdullah? Zubillah, there are sects who question the Iman of Ummah Amina and Abu Abdullah. Zubillah, your Iman will be lost in a microsecond if you do something like that. That's how dangerous it is. So, brothers and sisters, how do I cleanse the Kaaba? In my qalb, all these idols. So, step number one, identify the idols in my heart, brothers and sisters. We all, know ourselves better than, other person. Definitely not better than Allah, but we all know other than a second person or third person. So, we have to evaluate our own self, brothers and sisters. What are the attractions of this world because of me thinking that I'm just body-mind complex, that, which is governing my heart. My heart will, pump faster when I see a BMW car or a big, huge house, oh, I want that, I want this, that's what happens, brothers and sisters, So, again, connected to the world of form, brothers and sisters. That's are the idols of the heart. And what is the step number two? Is man arfa nafsahu faqad arfa rabbahu, brothers and sisters. And that's what we are discussing here, that the fastest way to dismantle this ego-based self, which is coming from the false identity of body consciousness, fastest way is man arfa nafsahu faqad arfa rabbahu. Inshallah. Okay, we continue. The true path, this is the true path and the fastest path, brothers and sisters. It will remove all the veils. It will lead me to the path of self-discovery. Man arafa. Who knows? Only Allah knows. Even nobody else knows. Only Allah knows. Ya Hakim is Ya Allah. Ya Hakim is Ya Allah. Ya Alim is Ya Allah. Ibrahim Adam, he was a great sheikh. He goes for his Hajj. Brothers and sisters, from the time he left his house, to the time he reaches Kaaba, for every step he is doing a sujood, brothers and sisters, towards the Kaaba. Think about it, brothers. It took years for him to reach the Kaaba, to Mecca from his house. And finally he reaches Kaaba. Here's Allah teaching him a lesson, a wisdom. What does it say? Ibrahim Adam, after so many years, think about it. Every step he's making sujood. He's walking. He's not on a horse or a camel, brothers and sisters. And for every step, he's doing a sujood. That's how he's reaching there, towards the Kaaba. He reaches the Kaaba. Now he goes into meditation. He looks at the Kaaba. He doesn't see the Kaaba. Now he's completely petrified. Why? I have done all this sujood towards the Kaaba. Now I come here. The Kaaba is not being seen. He asks Allah, Ya Allah, what happened to the Kaaba? Said, this physical structure that you're seeing, the Kaaba, is gone to do tawaf of Ummar Abidul Adwi. She's also come. Because she's a realized Kalandar, she's a realized self. So a realized individual who knows man arfa nafsahu, that person becomes more precious than the physical Kaaba, brothers and sisters. That's the reality. The internal prayer, the Kutub talks about it, and we'll cover that in future slides, brothers and sisters. We spend so much of time and money. Definitely we should go for Hajj and Umrah. There is so much of blessing to go to to visit the Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the Ummahatul, the Qabr of Ummahatul Mukminin, go to Karbala, go to Baghdad, to Ghaus al Azam Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jilani radiallahu anhu's, Mazar, go do all that, go and visit the Kaaba. But then there is also an internal journey that we have to take, brothers and sisters. Okay, so what are we saying here? Well, where is the Kaaba gone? It's gone to do the tawaf of Umar Abid al-Adwi. Okay, brothers and sisters, think about it. This is a sheikh, awliya of Allah, who for every step he did sujood towards the Kaaba, and then he reaches there. And this is what Allah reveals to him in ilham, brothers and sisters. Okay, what is the state of the seeker, of the poor seeker of today? Right, 73 sects are there. Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam already foretold it. 72 of them will go to hell. One will remain. I'm not here to say this is the true path and all that. No, my sisters, no way. I don't want to fall into that trap of shaitan. All I'm doing is just providing the information. I'm also on this path of self-discovery. So what happens in this self-discovery? Okay, I'm in one of these 72 sects. I am on the right path. The rest, which is 73 minus my sect, will go to hell. Please join my Jamaat, join my, this is a mob mentality there. And then what happens? The mob mentality, one fool is looking at the other fool, and they may be completely misguided, but the mob mentality keeps them going. Right? It's like frogs in a well. They think the well is the ocean, till one frog jumps out from there and goes and looks at the stream and says, "Oh, the stream is flowing. It's not stagnant water like the well." Then he goes a little further and sees the river. Oh my goodness, what is this? This is so vast. Finally, he reaches the river, follows the river and reaches the ocean and says, "What is this?" So this is exactly what happens, brothers and sisters, in this path of self-discovery. This is a path, brothers and sisters, you won't have jamaats and all that. This is, you have to tread most of the time lonely in this path. This is the path of Fakiri. Qutub Ba Muhyiddin Hazrat, his name is Ya Fakir Muhyiddin Mujahidatullah Lumail. He's a fakir. If you follow the path, you will become a fakir. The ego will be melted, completely gone. I remember one of the sheikhs who trained me, he said that, ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for a dua. And I always made that dua. That, I'll say it in Urdu. He said, Ya Allah, apne chupe hue waliyon ko dikha, apne chhape hue waliyon ko mat dikha. What does that mean? I recite that dua every day. That show me the walis, your awliyas who are hidden, not those ones who are, marketing outside. No, because the ones who are hidden have the real treasure, brothers and sisters. And once they have the treasure, they don't need to convince anybody. There is no existence. They are not projecting anything, and they don't want to be, projected on also. It's either way. And they just love isolation. They are in the zikr of Allah and Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And they are in the state of bliss. They are happy, content in that state, brothers and sisters. Okay. And again, brothers and sisters, it's just, again, I'm repeating this thing, right? Unfortunately, the sects arise because of the false identity of my own self. And this, all this mob mentality, Jamaat, and all this thing happens because of that I feel that the body mind complex is me. The moment I go into the turn, do a 180-degree turn, instead of looking outside, start looking inside, things starts dismantling inside. And it takes a long process, brothers and sisters. The amount of years we have spent looking outside into the world, projecting my identity to the world, or learning from the world, and trying to become the big guy, whatever it is, I am on the true path, everybody else is going to hell. All those has to, when you turn inside, the amount of time, or the garbage that we have collected, that has to be cleaned off, brothers and sisters. So it's not an easy process going in, but there's no option. Either you cleanse here, or you go into the grave and then start with the punishment there. So there is no easy way out. So it's just that, when you go into the self-discovery process, that, you are just starting your cleansing process earlier. you go into the grave, still it is the Qudrat of Allah. It's again Allah is ruling that place also. So there is no escape here, brothers and sisters. Okay. So the faster we realize that, the better it is. Okay. So that our nafs can start the journey. And I've covered that in Kalma Taiba and Shahada Kalma presentations, the different levels of the nafs, nafse ammara, lawwama, mulhima. I don't want to cover that here, but I guess because it'll take it too long. So when shaitan sees the human being trapped in the ego because of the body mind complex, he's happy because he made the same mistakes, and here are his followers, right? And what would you think the angels say? This is just for reflection. Angel will say, you know what, when we said this thing to Allah, to you, that when Hazrat Adam alayhi salatu wasalam was being created, that these people are going to make fasad on the earth. Guess what, we have done a good job there, right? We already 73 sects now. So that's what we have to think about it, brothers and sisters. So what is the step, brothers and sisters, to cleanse ourselves, to dismantle the body mind complex? First thing, definitely most important, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave us the Quran and the Hadith and the guidance for the deen of Islam. Even though we are talking about Sufiyat, Hakikat, Marfat and Sufiyat ilm here, Shariat is the basic foundation. And I say that in every presentation, 5-time prayer, zikr, everything. Then you go higher. You don't say, what, I'm a big Sufi now, I'm in state of ahad, I don't pray. No way. The biggest Sufi, is Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So, just to say that, Sharia is the first foundation. We have to do whatever the rules of Sharia has to be obeyed. The verse is step number 2, leave the form behind of who am I, you the seeker, and most importantly of our Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If I belittle my Nabi and saying he was just a human being, then how can I realize, the reality of my own self? My own self came from the nur of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And if I belittle Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, said he was just a human being, how can I discover man arafa nafsahu faqad arafa rabbahu? How can I discover my own self? If I don't discover my own self, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that you cannot realize Allah. Simple as that, brothers and sisters. All these texts, most of these texts, they complain. I don't want to name them because you know what, I'm not in that business there. So let everybody deal with their own realization, right? That Maliki Yawmiddin, he'll take care of it. So the day I leave the body consciousness behind, the ego of me, a separate entity, separate from the infinite, undivided Allah, right, will be lost, brothers and sisters, and it will merge. The soul will merge into the nur of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and only Ahmad, which is the name of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in heaven, can take me to Ahad, brothers and sisters. Again, brothers, this is highlighted. I cannot go directly to Ahad. Only Ahmad can take me to Ahad. Shaitan's worship is what? He did not bow in front of the nur of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Oh, because you know what? I can go connect to Allah directly. Think about it. Even Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, even when he went for Miraj, right? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam went for Miraj. Here is Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, right? He's asking Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, sending him back, right? Remember the 50 prayers, 45, 40, 35. And the hikmat of that was Musa alayhi salatu wasalam could never see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala directly because that ilm was not available at that time, brothers and sisters. The ilm that we are talking about here with the kutubs of the ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam brought, it was not available to the ummah of Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. And here's Musa alayhi salatu wasalam sending Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam back and forth every time. Go to Allah, reduce it by 5 more prayers. By the Mashayikh say that he could not see Allah, but at least he could see the eyes of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He just did the didar, who just saw Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The first human being to see Allah. Allah is Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He's coming down, and Musa alayhi salatu wasalam is the first human being to see the eyes of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Who just did the didar of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's the beauty, my sisters, because he couldn't see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That ilm was not available. It's only available to Ahmad, right? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the body form Muhammad minus Mim Ahmad, Ahmad minus Mim Ahad, brothers and sisters. Okay. Maula Ali, Allahu Akbar. Ana madinatul ilm wali babuha. Mawla Ali said, I have two streams of knowledge with me. One which is Zahir, which is available freely. You can get it in print and forms, in books and all that. And that is Ilm Zahir. The other one, he said, if I reveal it to everybody, not, that, you'll admonish me, label me, and probably try to eliminate him. This is Mawla Ali. So, brothers and sisters, two streams of knowledge. This Ilm of Kutubiyat is the second one, which is the Ilm of Batin. This is called Ilm Khas. The Kutubs came with this Ilm, brothers and sisters. So the blessed seekers for whom the love for Allah and Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is higher than their own existence in this world, their being in this world. For them, this is the food for their soul, brothers and sisters, the ilm khas. Why did Gausul Azam Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jilani came? And we talked about that in very much detail in Miraj presentation, because Mullah Hassan's life was truncated. He was Shaheed at the age of 45. Mullah Hussein radiallahu anhu was Shaheed at the age of 56. And when Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was in Miraj with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, some Mufassir say it was 20 earthly years they were together, Allah and Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and time was frozen here on earth at that time, brothers and sisters. And for the earthly realm, if a leaf was falling from the branch before it reached the ground, the mirage was over. But for Allah to freeze time is what's the big deal, right, brothers and sisters? So Gausul Azam Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jilani radiallahu anhu, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala invited Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam for a food together, brothers and sisters, just imagine, food together. And Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is seeing the heavenly food in front of him, and he's sitting quietly. This is the beauty of our Nabi. This is also the sifat of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam. Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is sitting silent. He said, Ya Nabi, why you're not eating? Oh, Ya Rasul, Ya Allah. Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is saying, Ya Allah, I never eat alone in the house. I share it. Then Allah says, okay, I will share meal with you. And the hand of Noor came. Now, when that hand of Noor came, there was a small baby's hand also which came and started taking food from that plate. And Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was a little surprised, said, Ya Allah, who is this? He said, this is from your progeny, the 51st from your progeny, child from your progeny. That is Gausul Azam Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jilani radiallahu anhu, brothers and sisters. That's the beauty. And that's the kutub of Allah. And then, the details are given in the Miraj presentation. I don't want to waste time here, brothers and sisters. So again, brothers and sisters, there are so many sects who reject the Gausul Azam Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jilani. There are so many sects in Islam. They reject him or they belittle him. And then I am saying that, what? If you belittle Gausul Azam Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jilani, then you have rejected Man Kuntum Mawla Fahad Aliun Mawla and Ana Madinatul Inwu Ali Babuha. These two hadiths of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Okay. Let's keep continuing. Now we go into the practical aspect. Okay, how do I leave the body consciousness behind and overcome my mind? Because if you really think about, brothers and sisters, it's not the body which is the problem. Okay, how many times do I know that my heart is beating? Very rarely. Unless you have pain in your heart, how many times your lungs is having expanding and contracting every second? Very rarely, unless you have a problem with your lungs, you have a cold or a cough or something, then you know it. Otherwise, we are rarely aware of our body ourselves, right? Most of the time we are mind beings, brothers and sisters, not body beings. So out of the body mind complex, it's most of the time the mind is what is deceiving us. Okay, so let's go through that in detail. This is just for level set. The pot is made of clay. Take a pot, it's made of clay. What is the underlying element of the pot? Is the clay, right? If the pot is broken into pieces, destroyed, dismantled, clay remains as it is in the pure form. So we are defining here something. We are saying pot is the relative identity, and what is the absolute identity in this case relative to the pot? Clay is the absolute identity. Okay, so in this case, when you look at the pot and the clay, what is not changing? Whether the clay is in the form of a pot or it's in the form of a spoon, the clay remains clay. So we have to look into our own self, whether the body is with us or it's in the grave, or on the day of judgment, what is remaining with us. That is the I-ness within me. That is where we are going. The I-ness within me. What is the constant unchanging element within me? That's the I-ness. Similarly, we are taking another example just to bring out the point much clearer. We see, when you go to the beach, we see waves, we see bubbles on the surface of the sea, right? They appear, they disappear, but both the waves and the bubbles are actually water. So what is the unchanging underlying element for the sea, whether it's bubbles or waves or tsunami, or what is the water is the unchanging, constant, unchanging element. Similarly, we are saying the body is made of the 5 elements: earth, fire, water, air, ether, right? Which is the relative reality, right? Which will be sent back to the grave. So the question for us to reflect from this slide is, what is the unchanging absolute reality within me? Because the 5 elemental body, now I'm pretty sure that you all agree, is the relative reality, brothers and sisters. Okay, I hope it's clear with this slide. Brothers and sisters, this is, the next 3 slides, very, very important, brothers and sisters. Okay, we are going to dismantle the mind, because this mind is something, if we have to overcome something, we have to understand it very clearly. If we don't understand something very clearly, we can never overcome, even a problem or an issue or whatever it is, whether it's a scientific problem or even a problem in relationships and all that. We have to go to the root cause. So the root cause is the mind. Let's study the mind, brothers. Let's look at this, the 5 characteristics of the mind, brothers. Now what happens, and this is the first one, and this has 3 subcategories. Mind always looks for proof for everything. Okay, 3 types of proofs. One is experimental proof. If somebody comes and tells me, oh, the car runs at 60 miles an hour, races up to 60 miles an hour within 3 seconds, what's the first thing the mind will say? Show it to me. I don't believe in that, right? So it needs to see it. It needs an experimental proof. That's how the mind works. The second thing, inferential proof, right? And we always use logic also. If I don't have experimental proof, for example, if I say, oh, I can create fire, but if you light the fire, there will be no heat. Then people will say, how can that happen? The moment you light a fire, the temperature is going to be there. So we need logical. So that's also coming from the function of the mind. We're talking on functions of the mind. The third thing, how does the mind, help us uh, live in this world, right? We're trying to understand the mind here, brothers and sisters, through books and scriptures. Scientists and scholars, they write books. The book, and then we read it. And unfortunately, what happens, brothers and sisters, most of the time, the mind believes in what it sees. Please understand this. You have to understand this very clearly. If you print something in a book, even if it's completely false, and you keep on reading it over and over again, the mind will believe in that. And that's the limitation of the mind. The brainwashing, when prisoners of war taken from different countries, say, communist country takes it, like, somebody from North Korea to South Korea, whatever happens, right? When the prisoner of war comes back, he's completely changed, because day in and day out, these guys are put in front of televisions and it's bombarded. And that's what happens to today's media, right? Anything, truth can be changed into falsehood. Falsehood can be given to the mass communication, and after a few days, that becomes the truth of that everybody believes in. And whatever is printed or shown, the mind just believes it. At that time, if it keeps on going, the first A and B, experimental proof and inferential proof, which is logical proofs and inferential proof, does not hold much importance. It's like brainwashing. That's what they do, right? So this is the limitation of the mind. So why we need to understand this thing? When we are going into this self-realization process, brothers and sisters, I need to go through all these obstacles of the mind, understand the mind carefully, so that I know where to take the left turn, take the right turn, don't get trapped in this ditch and all that. So that is where you need it, and that's the reason why we're discussing that. The question, who am I, man arfa nafsahu, right? Can I answer that through these 3? That's the question I'm asking. Man arfa nafsahu, can I answer that with these 3, um, uh, functions of the mind, experimental proof, inferential proof, books and scriptures. No, think about, brothers and sisters. It's for food for thought. You know, because why you cannot answer that? Because this is direct first person experimental proof. The mind always works on object oriented, brothers and sisters. It's always looking outside. Remember, brothers and sisters, this is the limitation of the mind. A mind is looking. You have ears, right? How many times can you hear heartbeat? Because ear is for outside noises or voice, what's coming from outside, not for inside, brothers and sisters. Your eyes cannot turn inside and look at what's going inside your body. Your nose is smelling outside, outbound, brothers and sisters. The nose cannot smell what's the smell of my acid in my stomach. No, it cannot. Even the skin is outside, brothers and sisters. If the skin had sensation inside, then I would feel the sensation of blood going through the veins, brothers and sisters. We don't have that. Think about it, brothers and sisters. So the here, why we are saying this thing is because the moment we go into manarafa nafsuhu, when I'm taking 180 degrees U-turn, I'm not looking manarafa nafsuhu and looking at the Kaaba. No, I'm looking at my own self. Mind cannot. It has got its limitation. We have no experimentation proof, we have no inferential logic proof, and no books and scriptures will give you any explanation for that. You have to discover it on itself. And that's the reason, brothers and sisters, when I said, Kul hu Allahu ahad, say Kul and say who is not he. The moment you say he, mind is happy, shaitan is happy. You have put Allah, body, form, pronoun, done deal. When you say, and who is coming from Hua is that? That means, what is that? You see a UFO. What is that? That is mystical. You have to go deep now. You have to go beyond the mind. Mind is, happy to read something, conclude, judged, and just put it in a shelf. This path is much more deeper than that, brothers and sisters. It takes a lot. And one of the most important thing is we spend a lot of energy, of our, we have finite energy, brothers and sisters, every day. We don't have infinite energy because, we are in the body, in the alam nasud. We spend a lot of time projecting outside, going here and there, right? Egocentric battles, egocentric pursuits of the world. Nobody wants to turn inside, brothers and sisters. Because it's not important, right? Because you know what? I'm going to live a long life. That's what everybody wants. Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said in a hadith that the son of Adam will not be satisfied from what he gets from the dunya till the mud of the grave enters his mouth. And that's so true, brothers and sisters, especially in this materialistic era that we are living in. And again, that's what we are saying in this slide, that truth cannot be understood by proof. Allah is beyond proof. You cannot prove Allah, nor can you disapprove Allah. Proof is connected to logic. Proof is connected to logic. Why? We cannot prove. Proof is connected to logic, and it has a very limited purview or scope of influence. This is the same with enlightenment. Same with love. Love cannot be proved or disapproved, right? And this is not in the realm of the seer. The seer is the seer. The true self is beyond the proof, brothers and sisters. And that is what we are talking about, awareness. The awareness of I am, that I am awareness is coming from your soul, brothers and sisters. When you go deep inside, when you go beyond the mind and the beyond the mind and body complex, that I-ness within you will go into awareness of the soul, brothers and sisters. That is where the jump we have to take. And that's where we will connect to Ahad, brothers and sisters, and we'll go through that in this presentation. What's the next problem, brothers and sisters? Lack of comprehension or incorrect knowledge. Wrong understanding is knowing the unreal. Most of the time we try to impose our own ideas, views, feelings on others and try to gather a following. Truth does not need convincing, brothers and sisters. It could be hidden and not apparent, but a true seeker will attain the ultimate reality if his or her quest is sincere. Allah loves me 70 times more than my own mother loves me, brothers and sisters. If the quest is sincere, the right teacher will come to you. I always felt that in my life. So you know, unfortunately the mind, because it's egocentric, right? What I believe, I'm in this sect and we believe this, that's it. No more exploration, because the ego is satisfied, the mind is happy, put to rest. You don't have to go beyond the mind. Man arfa nafsahu faqad arfa rabbuhu. Everything is great, life is going great, so that's it. Okay, it's the what do you call, the comfort zone we are talking about. What is the next one? Imagination. Mind, if it is let loose, brothers and sisters, it can take one to hallucination, right? People hallucinate about their future, and about the power and the position and the wealth they want to accumulate in this world. I will do this, I will do that. Reality is something else. Well trained and grounded mind can refrain from unreal and baseless thoughts, right? Imagination could be a pleasurable fantasy or baseless fears, brothers and sisters, right? And it could take you to the both, right? It could take you to pleasurable fantasy or to baseless fears too. And most of the time, common mind is trapped in this particular imagination. Most of the time, people imagine, oh, he thought, two people are talking, and so, oh, maybe these guys are talking about me. It's again, waswasa. It's all imagination, brothers and sisters. Think about it. We have a surah, right? Falak min sharri ma khalaq min sharri ghasiqin idha waqab, fil 'ashir. This is, the next one. Kul a'udhu bin nas, malikin nas, ilahin nas, min sharri waswasikhan nas, alladhi yuwaswisu fi sudurin nas min jinnati wan nas. Right? We have the surah and the Quran to protect us from that. But again, think about it. So the waswasa, imagination, or as assuming, is coming from the mind. And think about it. The Quran was revealed with the entire surah nas, right? For to curtail the imagination, the waswasa, right? Life is 10% what happens to us, and 90% our reaction to the incident, brothers and sisters. Think about it. It's very, very deep, brothers and sisters. Most of the time, 10% is what happens, and the 90% is the drama that we create. So if we are people who go within our own self, and then we can look at the situation. And I talked about this, even Surah Fatiha presentation, that if we can have the wisdom to look at a situation, if even if it's a dire situation that we have to face in our life, like we're looking at a fish in a fish tank from a third person perspective, and if we have the maturity to do that, most of the time, what happens in our life, the 10% of incidents, we can handle it very, in a soothing way, without creating much pain and drama in this world, brothers and sisters. And unfortunately, it doesn't happen. Countries want to fight each other, show them the power, and all those things, So that's how human beings are trapped. Shaitan is happy right now, He doesn't have to do much, We got too many human beings who are much better qualified than Shaitan right now, doing his work in a much faster and better way. So he can relax right now. Maybe he can take a vacation. Sleep. So what if the mind is not doing the previous three things, right? What does it do? It'll go to sleep. Why the mind goes to sleep is because the first three things that we discussed, it is so taxing, brothers and sisters. It drains the mind. So the poor mind has to sleep so that it can get up in the morning and do the same thing. Now, if it's not doing the first three and the fourth one, the sleep, right? What does it do? It will go back and into the memory bank. People spend a lot of time in their life. Think about past incidents. Oh, he did this to me, he did that to me, and all this animosity. Move on with life, brothers and sisters. It's too short. Man arfa nafsu faqad arfa rabbahu is much more important than that. Okay, move on. So, brothers and sisters, if I can escape, or if I can, so this is where we are talking about, right? These are the different functions of the mind, brothers and sisters. It is for me, for you, for everybody else to reflect on this thing, that if my mind is not doing any of these, right, then I can move to higher level of consciousness and try to connect to the journey into ahad, into oneness, to illallahu, brothers and sisters. For most of the people, now we have discussed this in so much depth, most of the people, mind is stuck with these five functions, brothers and sisters. Any of these five functions, they are stuck in that, or combination of these five functions. And this mind is always, remember, brothers and sisters, it is object oriented. It is looking outside, it cannot look inside, brothers and sisters. The five senses, as we discussed, can look outside, cannot look inside. The moment we turn Our focus, this is very important. What Allah has given us is the focus. When we turn our focus, the focus, brothers and sisters, is not coming from the mind. Remember that, brothers and sisters. It is coming from consciousness, from pure awareness, from the soul. When we move our focus, attention into our own self, the mind calms down. Because why? Mind knows he can't do anything. All these five functions of the mind cannot, figure out. And we're going to go through that all day throughout the day. The mind is in one of these activities. In those moments when we are not sleeping, not remembering old things or past incidents, not imagining, not looking for proof, then the moment of union happens, brothers and sisters. Oneness happens, brothers and sisters. Yeah, I hope it's clear. Okay, let me continue. This is a slide. I just made it so that the point is more, you know, graphical, so people can get a better idea. On the left hand side is what? Consciousness. Knowing is eternal, undivided, infinite. This is universal consciousness. This is Allah, which is not which is who but not he. Remember that, brothers. It is that which I have to figure out. It's within me. Ahad. Okay, that which I have to figure out. Ahad, which is the kalima, is within me. Allah and His Noor of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is within me. That is, it is that. Okay, not he. Remember that. When it goes through a prism, brothers and sisters, what is the prism? The prism is the filtering of the mind, the thoughts, right? Because everything is coming from the soul, the consciousness, pure universal consciousness. I may have a very good body, completely fit and all that, but if Allah decides, okay, this is the day I'm going to pull out his soul, it doesn't matter how much strong my heart is and all that. The body will just dismantle. You won't be able to revive it, brothers and sisters. So, it's not that the who is the master, between the soul and the body. The soul is the master and the body is the slave, and that's how it should be. Unfortunately, it's the other way around. For most of the human beings, the body mind complex, the false ego and the false identity is running the show for most of the people in this world, and the soul is in the background, and we'll discuss that. Okay, so what happens? The prism of the mind, the thought, the mind, the maya, and the illusion, the object oriented world, when it filters through the prism, right, what happens? Then we get feelings, sensations, perceptions, body related, this is all body related. Then the space and time bound, things, we start seeing material things. Ego rules this particular domain, brothers and sisters. Okay, I hope it's clear. Let me go to the next one. There are two poems I have, just put this here so that just we can just go deeper here. Okay, there's not much explanation here. Mind introducing itself to awareness, and as we said, brothers and sisters, the pure awareness of I am is coming from the soul. That is my true self. For the pure awareness, mind is also an object. Very, very important, brothers and sisters. Like body is an object, we are talking about pure awareness of I am. When you connect to your own soul, that I am still remains, as we said, because when my body dies and somebody's giving me ghusl, that I am is still there, brothers and sisters. And that I am is the I am from the soul. I am from the soul. My body is being given ghusl. I am going to be questioned in the grave. Who is going to be questioned? Not the body, my sisters. It is the soul which is going to be questioned. For pure awareness, mind is also an object. Very, very important, brothers. What is the subject? Subject is pure awareness. Like the body, the mind is also an object. This is, you have to reflect on this thing, brothers and sisters. Okay, now what is the poem? I, the mind, desires this and grieves for that. Mind is talking to us. Okay, I embrace one thing and spurns or rejects for another. Now I feel anger and now happiness. When I'm attracted, it is attracted to the eye sense, the five faculty, which is the faculty, the seeing, hearing, tasting, smelling, touching. Know that you are bound. The mind is telling me. When I'm attracted to anything, I sense. When I'm attracted to anything that I sense, which the mind is telling me through the five senses, know that you are bound. So the mind is talking to awareness, brothers and sisters. When there is no attachment, brothers and sisters, when there is no attachment and attraction, know that you are free. brothers and sisters. Okay, when there is I, which is the lowercase I, the egocentric, body conscious I, know that you are bound. Be in the state that you embrace nothing and turn nothing away. You embrace nothing, you don't want anything from outside, and neither you turn anything away. You're just in the state of being. And we're going to do the meditation towards the end of this presentation, brothers and sisters. It's not going to be all theory, okay? Just in being in the state of being. At that time, you go beyond the mind, brothers and sisters. Okay, I hope it's clear. This is another poem. I just put it here so that it's just to get a better grip on the subject. I, the awareness. This is from the soul, introducing itself. I am the infinite deep, in whom all the worlds appear to rise, beyond all form, forever still, even so I am. And then it further says, I am not in the world is not in me. I am pure, I am unbounded, free from attachment, free from desire, still, even so I am. So, see, brothers and sisters, this is all uppercase I, okay? Because this is the I connected directly to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, the next slide, difference of surrender with awareness, man arafa, and without awareness. Now, worship without duality. Shahada, again, as we said in the Shahada Kalima presentation, is that to witness the Shahada is the true thing. If you say the Shahada Kalima through your tongue, it is still at a lower level. You could surrender to something, to anything, due to fear and insecurity, fear of hell, and desire for heaven, right? Again, desire for heaven is that if I don't get heaven, then I lose the pleasure. So even there, the desire is also connected to fear, brothers and sisters. Remember that desire is also connected to fear. Okay, the duality mode of worship, I separate from Allah, as we said, kul hu, right? Not he, but that. He is a pronoun. We just say repeating it here again. I already figured it out because it's a pronoun. The mind is okay. He says, oh, he's my brother, he's my son. It is time and space bound. So I have reduced Allah to a pronoun he. He is one. Great, and then here my worship starts. No, that is incomplete. As we said, it is shirk, right? From a higher level of consciousness perspective. That is the mystical element beyond the name and the form, which is for me to discover, which is the eternal, infinite, undivided. Because if Allah is infinite, and if I feel that I am a self separate from Allah, that then I am saying Allah is not infinite. I'm contradicting right now. Remember, brothers and sisters, so it cannot be Allah is one and I am the second. No, doesn't happen. Then I'm going against the sifat of Allah, who is eternal, undivided, infinite. That mystical element, the entire 18,000 universes cannot contain me, brothers and sisters. That's what Allah says. But the heart of my Abd contains me. That's what Allah says. This is why, this is the point of merging. This is Ahad. This is a beautiful saying I put in here. When you break an egg from outside, brothers and sisters, you are taking a life. But when the same egg breaks from inside, when the hen sits on it and it hatches, it gives rise to a new life, brothers and sisters, very deep. Similarly, when your inner being awakens, when you break from inside, when the egocentric self breaks apart, once transformation happens, brothers. Okay, and what is breaking from outside is the physical death, right? Boom. The soul separates from the body, that's it. The life is gone. But if we spend this time that we have given, Allah has given us the blessed life we have, we definitely have to work for a living. We have duties and responsibilities, but spend some time to do our meditation, to learn the ilm of kutubiyat, and go into the journey of self-discovery. Man arafa nafsahu faqad arafa rabbahu. Definitely, brothers and sisters, Allah is merciful. He loves me 70 times more than my own mother who gave me birth loves me. He will take me to the journey of illallahu and to be with ahad with him, to be in oneness with him, inshallah. Let me go to the next slide. Very important, brothers and sisters. We've discussed all this, different slides so far. I think 26 slides. Mental attitude is very, very important in the spiritual path than the physical conditions and the scenario of the seeker. A seeker can be in Ethiopia or in a very poor country compared to Western civilizations, or the rich Middle East or anything. Doesn't matter. The mental attitude is what drives the spiritual progress, brothers and sisters. Okay, it would be more spiritually productive to discharge one's duties and responsibilities with more awareness that there is no individual I performing the doership. It is a duty without attachment. Qutb Muhyiddin Hazrat talks about it all the time. He says that, do your duty, whatever roles Allah has given you, with the duty without attachment, because that is what you're doing for Allah, for the sake of Allah. The doership, that I am doing it, because what happens, suppose you're doing something for somebody, a favor, and if that person insults you or doesn't reciprocate your what the favor, the ego hurts, right? And said, oh, I did so much for him and he's not even looking at me, or he's not thanking me. But when you do it for the sake of Allah, even if it's for your own children, even if when the mother is giving her own pure breast milk to the baby, to the infant, the best way is, and that is the highest form of giving, right? That's the highest form of giving. So best thing is, Allah has made me a mother and I have this baby. Definitely he's my son or daughter, but I'm doing for the sake of Allah. So tomorrow if the same mother grows old and the son is not looking after, or she's been sent to old age home, she will not be depressed because she did that act for the sake of Allah, brothers and sisters. Okay, and that is where the doership, because the doership, if we say, oh, I did it, he did not respond back, ego rises. When you give uh, the responsibility to Allah, that I'm doing it for the sake of Allah, right? For any action, then the ego rising there, it will not happen. If whether somebody thanks or not, you're doing for the sake of Allah. Okay, that's how to contain the ego, my sisters. So what we are saying is, to attain the state, the body consciousness, and hence the negative qualities arising due to the association or identification of the self, to the name and form, has to be destroyed, or at least to a large extent lose its mental grip. That's what we said. This is, the journey is more mental than physical. And when the seekers ask, who am I, better be an empty flute, that empty myself with all this adjunct identities I have created. This is the baggage I have created in my own life, which I have to cleanse now. Better be an empty flute which the creator can use to create whatever rhymes or rhythms that he wants to play. Be an instrument in the hands of the kutubs of the wali of Allah, so they can use you in whatever way they want to use, right, for the betterment of mankind. Brothers and sisters, beautiful slide. This is how to say, to see the dunya from a different perspective, right? Because people, every person, including me, do get attracted to the dunya every now and then. So let's look at the world of the form. The principle of creation of the world is duality. There are so many ayats of the Quran, right, which talks about, Surah Ali Imran, right? تولج الليل في النهار تولج النهار في الليل تخرج من ميت وتخرج ميت من حي وترزق من تشاء بغير حساب. Means Allah created the night and then day, and then the day and the night. Then similarly he creates, gives life, takes life, death, and hayya and mayyata, right? So the bottom line is, the entire universe is duality. You'll have heat, you'll have cold, you have light, you have darkness, you have dry, you have wet, you have life, you have death, you have night, you have day, right? This fact of duality is that we can never find fulfillment. Remember, brothers and sisters, very, very important. This is the fact of the duality of the how Allah has created the physical universe. And once you understand the duality very well, you will come to a conclusion. This is wisdom, brothers and sisters. You will never find fulfillment in this life. Remember, brothers and sisters, the soul that we have within our own self is always looking to merge back to the infinite. Okay, and what happens is, because nobody is taking the journey to go into internal, that is man arafa nafsahu journey, they are projecting their mind and trying to find happiness. So they will try to find happiness in material objects. they'll think, okay, if I have a big house, if I have a lot of bank balance, if I go for a great vacation, if I had this great meal, biryani and all those things, I will find happiness, right? And that is because the soul is looking for fulfillment. There is, because the soul is looking for fulfillment, there is a sense of incompleteness within us, and that because the mind is in charge, not and the mind is not asked to turn inward, focus is not turned inward, mind will try to take the person through to object oriented satisfaction. My sisters, so what happens if I keep on eating biryani and all this food all the time? Guess what? After some time, diabetes, high blood pressure will come, and then the suffering starts. So what this slide shows is, look at the left hand side: temporary pleasure, belonging, happiness, ego projection. On the right hand side, what is the temporary? Again, both are temporary, remember: pleasure, pain. Belonging, I have a lot of things. I don't have, then I'll crave for it, right? Happiness, sadness. Ego projection, I have anger and frustration because nobody's listening to me. I'm nobody, I'm like, pushed around by everybody. So bottom line, brothers and sisters, what we have to understand from this slide, that no matter where the swing is in your life, whether it's towards pleasure or pain, both are temporary. And the more I go towards pleasure, for example, somebody is a billionaire, right? He has got a 747 of his own, and he has got a lot of beautiful women and jewelry and food. What, when he becomes bankrupt, what happens? He falls from the ceiling at so high, right? So his fall is going to give him as much as pain as the amount of pleasure he experience. What about a fakir who is living a very simple life with very little belongings? For him, it doesn't matter, right? So the more the pendulum swings in either direction, a lot of pleasure, you're going to get equal amount of pain in this life, brothers and sisters. When you lose it, ultimately everybody is going to lose, and this is from a materialistic perspective, brothers and sisters. Remember that, right? We have so many of these dictators in the Middle East. They had beautiful palaces and every kind of luxury, and they were, throwing money on arms and ammunition, killing people. Some of them we saw that they were jailed, they were killed on the road, some were hanged. So what happens? The higher you rise, the steeper you fall. Simple as that, brothers and sisters. And this is what I'm saying. The slide talks about duality. So a person of wisdom will understand that running behind this thing is of no use. The amount of pleasure I look for, when I don't have that pleasure anymore, the same amount of sadness will creep me into it. So to be in the state of equilibrium, right, in the center, look at the state center, neither pleasure nor pain. That is where we need to be to get into ahad, brothers and sisters. Okay, so we need to use the dunya in a way. I cannot be going into this journey of illallahu, expecting a lot of dunya with me, because then I'm swinging my pendulum, right? I'm going to go from one direction and it's going to come back in another direction, brothers and sisters. Okay, so again, that is what the slide says. Let me go to the next one. Very important relationship with Allah and Rasool Allah. We all say, what Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu hadith, that one day Rasulullah asked, Ya Umar, whom do you love the most? And Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu said, I love Allah first, and then Rasulullah, then himself, and then he said, third is Rasulullah sallallahu. Rasulullah said, go back and contemplate. Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu comes back, later, and then he falls at the feet of Rasulullah sallallahu and said, Ya Rasulullah, forgive me sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that I made a mistake. I love you Allah most, then second Rasulullah sallallahu, and third himself, Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu. At that time Rasulullah sallallahu said, Ya Umar, today your iman has become perfect. Okay, we know this hadith, but guess what, brothers and sisters, it's very difficult for us to experience that the love for Allah and Rasulullah sallallahu if we are object oriented. We can say it from lip service, it never happens. The heart is somewhere else. But let's get to the point here. Self-love is the highest form of love. It is a bottom line. We are trying to say something very, very important here. Pursuit of happiness is the highest goal of every human being. If I say, okay, go and work hard for 1 year, right? And then the year after this is going to be a lot of misery because of what you did for 1 year. Who's going to do that? So people work hard for a living, and education and business ventures, they're looking for happiness. And brothers and sisters, again, as I said, the soul in the background is looking for merging back to illallahu. Inna lillahi wa inna ilaihi rajiun. But when you have the mind trying to look for that same fulfillment, you will not get that fulfillment from any object oriented ventures. And finally, the mind will realize, but for most of the people, it's too late. Old age has come, or the body has separated from the soul, and death, the physical death has happened. Now we'll be questioned for how did you make this money, or how did you spend the time in this world. Was it wama khalaqnal jinn wal insa illa liya'budun, or was I was just attracted to the world and I was running around behind it, right, for fulfillment, which will never happen. So first, we try to find happiness in the material things. When all the goals are realized, he will still feel a void. Lot of rich people, when they feel, okay, I have become a billionaire or whatever it is, then they creep back into spirituality, because the vacuum from the soul is still there, brothers and sisters. The soul wants to merge back into the infinite. Nafs, or the lower self, pulls down the man down into the religion of materialism. Brothers and sisters, this is very important. The religion of materialism. Literally, what? Today we talk about, different religions: Islam, Christianity, Buddhism, and all that. Brothers and sisters, what? We need to define another religion, religion of materialism, which is common beyond all of them. Right? It's common to all the religions. You know, Material religion. That is what we have today. Until Man Arafa journey begins, he goes through a radical shift in focus. That is, the mind looking outward is now turned inward. All focus will shift. Instead of going outward, he'll take inward, and this takes a long time. The Kututs and the Awliyas, what is their function? The wisdom they have given, what we are talking here right now, these are wisdom which is given by the ilm of the Kutubiyat. They act as catalyst in this path to clear the way, so that, because remember we said this particular journey is more mental than physical. So if I need to get the right wisdom and the right knowledge to get to where I need to get to. If one finds the treasure of Allah and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam within himself, then self love, very very important, self love, because self love, as we said, defined as is the highest form of love. The self love will automatically take him to the highest love of Allah and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When you start feeling the presence of Allah within your own self, when you start seeing the nur of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam within your own self, brothers and sisters, because I love my own self, automatically the love will take me to a higher level, because now I have found a true identity which is connecting directly to Allah and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The kalima becomes live in my life, within my own self, and that is where we transcend the physical world, and we say I love Allah the most, then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then my own self. It only happens when the true identity of our own self is revealed to us. Till we are stuck with the body conscious identity, there's no way. It's very difficult to love Allah and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allah first and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam second. The Sahabis, all of them were beyond body consciousness. Why? Because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, okay, go fight a battle. They don't say, oh, I have a family, I have, a wife, I have so much of wealth sitting there. They will go and give their life. They will protect Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam with their own bodies, so that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam does not get hurt. So they don't have body consciousness, brothers and sisters. They never had body consciousness. Okay. We are living in the time of Dajjal, brothers and sisters, So we have other issues. So, brothers and sisters, this is the Sufi path. So, to experience Allah and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the nur of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam within our own self, our own identity changes, brothers and sisters. It's not no more the material, the body-mind complex, and then the love for Allah and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam becomes primary, because I have found a new identity for my own self. Okay, hope it's clear. The next three slides, I have taken from the book. I'll tell you the label. It is the secret of the. It's lying next to me. Secret of the Last Ant-Man. Okay, my sisters, you can buy it, and I took it right from the book. It's very beautiful. I wanted to put there. Advice of the Kutub of Baba Muhyiddin Hazrat, Kutub Baba Muhyiddin radiallahu anhu, for the children about the dunya. This is what the Kutub is telling us. Jewel lies of my eyes. Kutub always refers to us as children. Remember that, brothers and sisters. Because it is like that, we should never act in the world for the respect of the world. for the praise of the world. We should never worship for the sake of the world, for or pray 5 time prayer for the sake of the world, or speak in such a way to attain the praise of the world, or study or sing or dance for the sake of the world. Think about, brothers and sisters, he covered everything. The world will not come with you when the physical death happens, nor will the body come. Your relatives will not come with you, nor will the parents come with you, nor the crazy people of the world will come with you. Nothing in the demonic world will get past the symmetry. This is what Kutub has written in the book. However, the good or the evil we sought, the witness, the justice, the rule, the angels within us could come with us and stand witness. None others will come. We should think about this, brothers and sisters. This is what the Kutub talks about the dunya. Okay, let me go to the next slide. Advice of the Kutub to the children about the qalb and the mind, about the heart and the mind. Should we make the decision of siding with the mind or with the qalb, which resides in the truth? The mind is within us and deceives us with a huge smile. That's what the Kutub says. The qalb, the innermost heart, too is within us. Yet the qalb does not deceive us. This is consciousness, brothers. Okay, it is constantly sad and sorrowful, thinking, why is he acting like this? This is talking about what the Kutub is talking about, a person who is, living his life object oriented. He is the slave of his mind. Okay, so the qalb is thinking, saying, why is he acting like this? The qalb too can smile with happiness, except that it does not act deceptively like the mind. It is waiting to embrace with love. The mind is like a dog or cat and is waiting to pounce on you, thinking, how can we finish him off? Think how the Kutub says, the mind is like a dog or a cat, is waiting to pounce on you, thinking how we can finish him off. That is, finish me off. These are the two sides of the qalb and the mind. Bear witness and give your judgment. Are you going to favor the qalb or the mind? The qalb, again, brothers and sisters, remember, not everything that glitters is gold. Remember that. The qalb looks old and worn out. The mind looks young and beautiful. If you favor youth and beauty, then you choose the mess which is yours, brothers and sisters. Okay. The next advice, Kutub, the secret of direct and inner worship. That's what we've been talking about all this time. Kul hu Allahu ahad, which is the direct worship, inner worship. Not Allah is one, right? He, Allah is one. Basic, insufficient explanation. Okay. The qalb must directly connect to Allah without any parallel or equal. Think about it, brothers and sisters. Right? If I think I am a finite entity separate from Allah, Allah is infinite, then we are already contradicting. Right? The qalb must directly connect to Allah without any parallel or equal, which is ahad. To connect to him, to love him, to trust him, to have iman in him, to pray to him, to give him the responsibility with a strong heart is worship. And that strong heart is the heart which is in ahad, brothers and sisters, in oneness with Allah. Not I'm praying on the musalla or janamas and Allah is on the seventh heaven sitting there on the kursi, right? To accept him directly without any duality, without any associate, and give yourself completely, which means surrender completely, that the egocentric I has to be destroyed, brothers and sisters. To surrender to him completely in true worship is the true prayer, brothers and sisters. This is the secret of direct worship. And as I said here, the secret of the last man, Ant-Man, Amar Hazrat Baba Muhyiddin, Kutub Baba Muhyiddin radiallahu anhu. You can buy this book, it's available there. Someone asked the Kutub, who are you? The Kutub says, right, gives an answer, Ant-Man, Chinna Manidan. Right, insignificant human being. That's what the Kutub says. Think about it, brothers and sisters. Right, the reality of the Kutub, he's in oneness inside, but somebody asked externally, right, who are you? Just an identity. He said, just insignificant, don't even talk about that. It's nothing to talk about. Ant-Man, right? If you have 50 ants roaming on the on your floor right now, you think you're going to name each of them? Oh, you don't care. Right? That's how the Kutub defines his physical form, brothers and sisters. Think about it. And the name of the book I'm talking about, the secret of the last Ant-Man, brothers and sisters. Kutub brings with the highest level of wisdom, highest level of ilm. He dismantled the Nur of Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam to the depth of it. And then he talks that he's like an ant-man. So when my egocentric I disappears, then only he is. That is when my egocentric I, if it appears, then Allah veils himself. When my egocentric I disappears, then only Allah remains. Okay, he is. That is, he is the being. Quick question, right? Why did Allah create the universe? Again, it is the nature of bliss, which is the true self of Allah, to share and express itself. And hence Allah created human being, Ashraful Makhlukat, Khalifatul Ard, as the mirror of his true self. Brothers and sisters, we are the mirror, we are the Ashraful Makhlukat. The true human being is the mirror of Allah. So we can discover our own true self. Man arfa nafsahu faqad arfa rabbahu. And on top of which, he has covered our true self with this body mind complex. So what is the journey, right? Wama khalaqnal jinn wal ins illa liya'budun. Unless I dismantle and discard this body mind complex, I cannot get into my true self. I will not be able to do the true inner worship which the Kutub is talking about. The false identity will lead to misery and sadness. Realizing and discarding the false identity and understanding my true self, which is man arafa, one has a chance to go back to where he came from. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi rajiun. That means to go back to where you came from. In Allah, within Allah, there is no opposites, brothers and sisters. As we said, the world is made of the principle of duality. Allah, there is no opposites. All duality ceases when one reaches Allah. It is only Ahad. It's oneness. It is universal consciousness, brothers and sisters. It is pure awareness at that point. And at that point, you are looking even at your mind and your body as objects. And the subject is only awareness, pure awareness. When you get into meditation, when we overcome every desire, we lose connection to the five elemental energies. As long as we follow the world, we will have pleasures, but we will also have pain. We talked about it. The pendulum swinging in either direction. We'll continue to suffer because we enjoy and we seek the opposite. We seek pleasure because we are seeking the opposite of suffering. For a true enlightened soul, the suffering as well as pleasure, it's the same thing. He is neither swayed by either side. Okay, men are moved more by intellect, women are moved by feeling. Men can decipher things or concepts and take it apart, but intellect cannot feel. That is the bottleneck of a man. He doesn't think much from the heart. Feeling is more centered in the heart. Women feel much more. But let's look at the positive and negative. That women have more reality and closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Qutb Muhammaduddin Hadrat said that if the man is bones, then woman is flesh, right? But as long as the women live in the delusion, they are more attached to Maya or illusion than men. Why? Because they are more attached to things. Men are more attached and caught up by sex. Okay, and when that balances off, which is for women they have to be a little bit more detached, for men they have to control their sexual energy. When those balances off, they can both can become great. Both men and women can become great. Women tend to take life things in life or incidents in life more personally than men. Men are more detached to the world, more attracted to instantaneous pleasure, right? Like as we said, sex or status, power, projection of their self. That is what men are more attracted to. Women are not attracted to that. When you are one with Allah, what happens? The raindrop merges with the ocean. And one can also look at as the ocean merges with the drop. It doesn't matter because now the ahad has happened. Brothers and sisters, it's so beautiful. It's not just that the raindrop merges with the ocean. You can always also think of that the ocean merged with the drop. And after that, there is no more separation. It's only oneness. When we get rid of the ego or oriented self, which is thoughts, actions, perceptions, then we understand the who, which is that Allah. That Allah is the only reality. Rest of identities or idols which I have carried within me for all entire life will break, for they are the false self. So if I am wise, let me break the attachments and false self now and cleanse the qalb from the idols within my spiritual heart and experience the oneness of Allah and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam which are within me. And brothers, we are saying here again that existence means we are trying to project something. Okay, when we are merging back into reality, there is no existence. Allah is be, kun bi iznillah, just be, and it happens. So there is nothing to project. So mind is always looking for projection. It's looking for object oriented, which is projection, right? Every object projects itself, right? And that's the reason, brothers and sisters, with your monkey mind or my monkey mind, we can never reach Allah. Okay, and that ibadat is always going to be falling short, because you will not have the correct concentration in the prayer. Things will get disturbed, and the real inner prayer, as Qutb Baumiddin Hazrat, the Qutb says, real prayer starts when the inner prayer starts. That will never happen. Okay, and the true seeker will definitely find the reality. Allah always looks at the amount of effort one puts in, brothers and sisters. Okay, it's a beautiful slide I put in. Okay, and again, this is the way, the from base camp. This is the conquering the Mount Everest. I went through, some of the YouTube videos about how the mountaineers, would try to, conquer the Mount Everest, reach to the top of the summit at 8,848 meters, right? They try to get there. I think it's like 29,000 feet approximately. So the spiritual journey is also something similar, brothers and sisters. If you see at the bottom of the Sharia, 5 pillars of Islam and six pillars of Iman, this is at the Sharia, the base camp. Okay, and then you keep going there, a little bit up there in the camp one at 6,035 meters. This is tariqat. The foundation of the Shariat is established. You have a sheikh, whom you follow, and he will make sure your nafs is being tuned. Zikr ilahi becomes the way of life. You are given, silent zikr as well as zikr from your tongue. Both are given. Then again you continue to the next, higher side. This is hakikat, where the veils of illusions getting lifted, and that is where, you start experiencing the reality, reality of your own self, reality of different ayats of the Quran, different ayats of different sayings of hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You go beyond the obvious, you start digging deeper. The next one on the top there is marifat, the next level. It says what? The ilm which is hidden is revealed. So for example, what we are talking here, kul hu Allahu ahad, it's been talking for so long. You can go, as I said, say he is one. That is most of the translations. What is that? This ilm which the Kutub has given is an ocean, brothers and sisters. We can talk for the next billions of years, still ahad explanation will be incomplete, right? And this is the hidden ilm of marifat. Okay, now I put this in circle here. If you see in the top, right, the summit camp, the marifat to the Sufiyat. And why I put that here is because from the summit camp to the summit and coming back is 18 hours, brothers. 12 hours of climb, coming back is 6 hours, so total 18 hours. And at that level, which is at 7,900 meters, the oxygen level is 1/3 of what is at the sea level. So and the weather changes suddenly. For example, in 1 hour it is sunlight, next 1 hour it will be a blizzard or a snowstorm, which will just completely engulf the mountaineer. So it's a very, very dangerous climb from the summit camp to the summit. And most of the death, and it's also called as the death zone, most of the death of the climbers for the Mount Everest, it happens in that zone from the summit camp to the summit. Okay, even experienced climbers who have climbed the Alps in Switzerland and all that, they die there. Okay, so what does that mean? Why is it significant here in this slide? The thing is that when I'm on this journey, the self-evaluation process is extremely important. Okay, if I'm really serious in this journey and I need to get to it, to the summit, which is the Sufiyat, which the Kutub talks about, I need to be serious about this. I cannot be having double mind that, what, I'll take it light. I have 10 other aims in my life, and reaching the summit of spirituality is another aim. No, this one has to be the highest aim, and everything else can be secondary. That doesn't mean I'm going to leave my family aside. No, no. What I'm saying is, what is the focus or the amount of effort to be put in to reach the summit of spirituality? That has to be the highest. And believe me, brothers and sisters, when you go in this path and you are sincere, Allah will make life easy for you. Because a lot of negative ventures or ventures which have no fruit. Some you might start a business which will become bankrupt in 5 years. Those kind of pursuits of the world, and wasting your time, Allah will keep you away from that, because now you're in a self-discovery process trying to get to Allah, and you're using the dunya to get to Allah. So Allah will make sure that you don't have enough but turns in your life. He will give you income. It might not be more, but it will be inshallah sufficient. Allah will give you so much barakah in your income. And the nusrat, the help of Allah will be there, brothers and sisters. Okay. So again, the death zone. Why I'm saying is that it's not an easy journey, brothers and sisters. Okay. So we have to do our self evaluation, and take it very seriously. It cannot be any other dream, like, okay, I need a beautiful house in the next 2 years, or no, it cannot be like that. This is a journey. Okay, it's not a goal. It's a journey of the entire lifetime, okay, to get to ahad. Again, the summit camp, death zone that we said, right? Walking on the spiritual, like a path is like walking on sword's edge. We have to be very careful. We cannot insult people, we cannot harm people. We have to protect ourselves, but at the same time, brothers and sisters, let me be clear, I cannot be a doormat. Not everybody can come and step on me and do whatever they can. No, because I have to protect my own spirituality, my own mental level. So that is very, very important for the seeker. We will experience pain and suffering, cuts and bruises, because you're walking on the sword's edge, and there will be bleeding. But this is all for a greater good cause. Okay, to get to the closeness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Sahabas paid the price. All the Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Hanbal, Imam Shafi, everybody, they have paid the price, brothers and sisters. So it's not that everything is going to be great and be handed to me or you on a silver plate. It doesn't happen like that in the path of spirituality. The Kutub says it's our birthright to worship Allah. It's our birthright. Okay, who created us. Our wealth is to make him clearly evident within our own selves. This is Kutub's words, brothers and sisters, are not my words. And then obtain his wealth. His wealth is in our innermost qalb, right? That is what, that is where ahad is. Okay, again, still water runs deep. The spoon does not know the taste of the soup, nor a learned fool the taste of wisdom. Okay, so we have to go from the material oriented self, body mind complex, into our own self. Okay, there is no shame in not knowing. Okay, the shame lies in not finding out. Okay, just two sayings for to reflect, for me and you to reflect. Let me go to the next one. Again, this is a question which is asked most of the seekers. I just wanted to put that, that now that we say, okay, we are going into the internal journey. Do I have a really free will? Okay, and it pertains to this presentation. So that's the reason I put it in here. Your destiny is in your hands, provided you have worked on freeing yourself. Very, very important. A slave of the dunya is never has a free will, because he is pulled by in his heart by the idols that he has created. If you have touched the infinity of reality within your own self, and one has discarded the adjunct awareness, false identity, and got in touch with the essence of one's own being, then you're free. Else, decisions will be made on the basis of tendencies, habits, likes and dislikes, predispositions, ignorance, conditionings of the mind, and hence one will never be free, which we talked about. Okay, but will be bound by the idols that I carry in my heart. And hence the decisions in my life on what situations. Remember, we said that 10% is what happens in your life, 90% is how you will respond. The decisions of my life will not be made from a deep consciousness perspective. It will be made by a monkey mind which is jumping from one branch of the tree to another branch in haste, and most of the time it will be wrong decisions, and we'll pay the price for that. Only free men have free will. Most have either trained or conditioned will. Free will is a possibility. One has to genuinely free one's mind to exercise free will. Else, one is bound by the idols installed in the heart, and that is a state of shirk. Okay, because the heart only belongs to Allah and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The love of Allah and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam should be in the heart. Nothing else should be in the heart. If the love of the dunya is there in the heart, the love for Allah and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam will be taken out. Both the dunya and the love for Allah and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam cannot coexist. Either the love for Allah and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is in the heart, or the love for dunya is in the heart. Both of them cannot coexist at the same time, brothers and sisters. Okay. This is a beautiful slides. There are a couple of them. I just made it so that people can try to understand easily what is universal consciousness. When Allah created all these souls, and this is Alam Arwa, I'm talking about Alastu bi Rabbikum. Who is your Lord? Kalu Bala. We all said in Surah Araf. I think it's there. Okay, universal consciousness is pulsating. It's always pulsating homogeneously throughout the 18,000 universes. And brothers and sisters, I can talk about this for a long time. I'm trying to get to the end of this quickly as possible. But the scientists talk about God particle, dark matter, and all those. Again, these are all going beyond the five elements, right? Even when you go into the into split of the atom, neutrons, protons, positrons, and then they are talking about even the observer effect. There are so many things that you can go and read that the electrons act as a waveform when nobody's looking at it, but when somebody looks at it, then it's more concrete. So consciousness manipulating matter. Okay, and this is a huge discussion, brothers and sisters. So I don't want to get into that and confuse people, but if you go and look for observer effect, about the how matter changes when the consciousness, when somebody looks at it, right? So within and I'm trying to put this in a graphical format within the universal consciousness. So if you think about this, the blue waves and the brown wave and the blue wave, most of the time, right? So our own all souls in Alam Arwa. Think about this is in Alam Arwa. All the souls are in a state of bliss. Okay, and then suddenly a vibration happens, right? And then Allah says, and the vibration is the rise of the individual consciousness. Think about each of these three waves is three souls. Okay, just for making it simple. And who am I, right? Allah asked, who am I? Alastu bi Rabbikum, right? Actually, the question is, who am I, basically? And then two of the souls on the right and the left say, you are the Lord. I'm in the state of Ahad. Go back to homogeneous, homogeneity, right? But think about this guy in the middle. That soul, individual conscious rises, right? And now he thinks that he's separate from Allah. Okay, so this is what it thinks, the individual I, the small I. Look at the small I. When I'm in the bliss state, there's only one huge I. Okay, and that is I written in this thing in the parenthesis. The big I is Ahad. Okay, but the brown I, the individual I has risen. Okay, the I which thinks it is separate from the Ahad, which is the universal consciousness, which is the consciousness of Allah. Let's go to the next slide. Option number one, Alastu bi Rabbikum, Kalu Bala, individual consciousness. Return back. What's the option? I can return back to surrender state and be in the state of oneness, Ahad. But if you go back to and that is the blue wave, the two blue waves on the right and the left. Alastu bi Rabbikum, individual consciousness rises. Guess what? There is no body because you're in Alame Arwa. Okay, so there's no body. But like immediately after the no body means it's like the situation in the dunya. What is immediately after my death? I will have no body. Okay, but I think I'm independent from Allah. That is what the brown wave is thinking. That I'm independent existence than Allah, which is eternal, undivided, and hence that particular soul is in the state of illusion. Okay, now continuation of this option 2. What is now that independent soul comes into Alam Nasut. He's born to a parent, to a mother. Name and form is given. That name and form reinforces his individuality. Oh, I am this body. I have a name, right? Ego rises. And then the next 60, 70, 80, 90 years of his life, he's running around thinking that that body is me. So from Alam Arwa, the individual consciousness rise. Allah gives the body. What happens when the body comes into the Alam Nasut as a child which is born? it reinforces the individual identity separate from Allah. And then it has got belongings, attachments, likes and dislikes from the mind. Habits have created tendencies, jealousy, greed, lust, anger, anxiety. All these things put together becomes the book of deeds. And then Allah will say that Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim Maliki Yawmiddin. I am the master of the day of judgment. Here you go. I'm in trouble now. Okay. What happens? The end of option 2, death. Wake up of the reality. I am left with the baggage of the book of deeds of this life due to the duality mode in which I lived my life. So, brothers and sisters, we know and we talked about this that the reality of the world is what? The world is created, the materialistic world is based on the reality of dual of the I'm sorry, the materialistic world is based on duality. But I cannot use my mind to be in the state of dual when I'm connecting to Allah. I have to dismantle the duality and go back into ahad. That is the only way I can reach salvation, and that is the only way I can live my life in this dunya without getting attracted or getting into the trap of shaitan and the attractions of this world, because this world is a deception, right, brothers and sisters? So as hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that we have to escape from this world. You have to live as a stranger in this world, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said. Okay. So option number 1, death engulfed in Maya, wake up call, fear, reality, delusion, no realization has happened because the person lived his life for the sake of the dunya, left with the baggage of the book of deeds, duality of existence in the earth, right? Which is the state of shirk. Think about it, brothers and sisters. It is very easy to say, oh, this person who is doing idol worship is in the state of shirk. No, even if I have all this materialistic ideology which is in my heart, then I'm also in the state of shirk. I'm not saying that somebody is worshipping an idol is not doing shirk. I'm saying that I have shirk, the internal idols in my heart also has to be broken up. If I'm going to say that I'm this great monotheistic guy, right, which is difficult, right? The journey of ahad is a journey of a lifetime and goes beyond in the grave, and it's infinite, brothers and sisters. So there is no time for labeling other people, right? So and that is the state of separation, right, in duality, which is independent existence other than Allah, and that is the la ilaha. Okay, and illallahu is the ahad. Okay, option number 2, death with complete realization. So first one was the option, the bad option, right? I have to go through the day of judgment, I have to go through pul sirat, book of deeds, all those things will happen. Option 2, the kutub says, this is option 2, this is the best part, death with the eternal bliss, ahad, realizing this journey, going through life, spending time doing the zikr, doing ibadat, doing meditation, and learning, and putting it to practice, oneness with the noor of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Panjatan Pak. Very, very important. If I don't know, if I don't understand the reality of as we said, of the sacrifice Ummah Khadijatul Kubra, of Ummah Fatimatul Zahra, Maula Ali, Maula Hassan, Maula Hussein, right? Ummah Zainab radhiyallahu anha, of all the Sahabis. And then I'm this great guy sitting here saying that I'm a great Muslim. No, it doesn't happen. These blessed souls, we are at their feet. We are at their feet, brothers and sisters. We are so in depth them. We can only stand in front of them with our, heads bowed down. That's how much we owe, all the blessed Sahabis and everybody. We can't even, you know, um, don't even have the, haysiyat, or the reality to stand in front of them. There's no way, brothers and sisters. That's how much they have sacrificed. So, and that is illallahu, brothers and sisters. Okay, so to love the ashab of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Ahlul Bayt, and more than our own self, then the illallahu journey happens, brothers and sisters. Okay, so Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So what happens? A person in that option number 2, after complete realization, when he's dying, inshallah, 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 may Allah bless us with all this. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam comes and recites the salawat, and the person recites the kalima, and then it leaves the body. The goal and the gift of life on the earth, which is realized. What is the realization? Man arafa nafsahu faqad arafa rabbuh. and return back. The soul return back from where it came from Nur Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi rajiun. Okay, and again, this is just a slide. There's nothing much here. What is the different false identity or adjunct awareness that I have? And look at this: water plus lemon juice; water plus tea leaves, black tea; water for plus dirt is murky water; water for with masala, add curry; water with vegetables, soup; water is the essence, and all other things are adjunct awareness. So again, I go back to my own self and say, who am I? So the reality is the awareness which comes from my soul. Then the mind and body complex will take over that reality, and then ego creeps in, and then we are in this materialistic world running around for the dunya. Similarly, our job, our profession, our belongings, our possessions, noble lineage. Oh, I am this great guy coming from this royal family, all the stuff, power, status of the family gives rise to the I, the lowercase I. Again, we said this is egocentric I, right? Which is the pseudo entity, which is connected to the name and the form. And it becomes meaningless once the soul leaves the body. Everything is dismantled with a stroke, by the Malikul Maut, right? Azrael Islam. Then reflect on one's sleep, right? Why? Because Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam hadith says sleep is the little sister of death. And what happens when you sleep? All these identities that we talked about, power, lineage, status of family, possessions, money, and all this thing. When you sleep, all these things are gone. So every night we experience this thing, brothers and sisters, where we lose this identity, right? But then when we wake up this reality. I'm this great guy. And Allah is making us experience through deep sleep all these things. But man is so hasty, right? He wants to grab everything, right? And that's what happens. And how to live in this life, even though we have to still survive, right? We cannot leave everything and go to the Himalayas or go sit in a cave and meditate. We cannot do that. Is duty without attachment. You have to be in this dunya, but you do everything that you have to done as a responsibility to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and not for your own personal gains. That's the Kutub's formula. He says, do whatever you have to do in this world, duty without attachment. Finally, brothers and sisters, when you meditate, what happens? Before you meditate, what happens? This is the entire big circle is your own. Think about the mind. Okay, there is greed, there is anger, there is lust, there is arrogance, and look at the consciousness. It's a small dot there, a red circle consciousness. It's so insignificant because nobody has spent time. All this anger, greed, lust, and arrogance. The mind is always looking outbound. And consciousness will grow only when you start looking inwards. Take a 180-degree turn and start looking inwards. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Effect of meditation on my habits and tendencies. Look at this. The pure consciousness circle has become big now. When I start meditating my own self, what happens into deep meditation? You still have these negative qualities: anger, misery, jealousy, greed, and lust, but it has become very insignificant now. It has lost control over you. Brothers and sisters, it cannot pursue, sway you in different directions like the pendulum. The mind can get lost in the world and experience sadness, anxiety. But once you go into deep meditation, and what happens, brothers and sisters, why meditation is important is once you start doing meditation, after some time, maybe it's 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, 5 year, it all depends on how much garbage I have collected before I started this journey. That amount of garbage I collected, that's the amount of years it'll take to cleanse it. Simple formula, right, brothers and sisters? So, but the point is that meditative way of meditation, the calmness that you experience in meditation, it will slowly start permeating or going into your personal life also. It's like if you have a magnet and an iron block. If you keep on rubbing the iron block on the magnet, after some time the iron block will start getting magnetic quality. So meditation is like that. When meditation becomes a part of life, your 7 by 24 way of life also become meditative. Your salah, your prayer, that also goes to a higher level of consciousness. So muraqabah, brothers and sisters, extremely important, brothers and sisters. It cleans up all the dirt within us, okay, which we accumulate. Is heaven or reaching heaven important in this path of self-discovery? I'm pretty sure you already know the answer. When one realizes true self and is in the process of merging with the heart, then heaven and its material descriptions, houris and fried fish, becomes meaningless or loses its luster. because getting into ahad becomes the highest um, goal of life. Okay, again, it's not a desire, brother. Going back to your house and sleeping on the bed, that is where you belong to. Okay, it's not a desire. Maybe going to a five-star hotel and eating food is a desire. Okay, Umar Abitul Adwi, and beautiful mother, she said that if I'm seeking heaven for its pleasures, ya Allah, refrain from and don't give it to me. And then same thing he said, if I'm seeking to be away from hell, or escape from hell, from the fear, then put me in hell. So beautiful. But if I love you, Allah, if I love you for your own self, for your own sake, accept me. This is man arafa nafsu faqad arafa rabbahu. So brothers and sisters, Baba Muhyiddin Hazrat said, heaven is not an object to work for, okay, where you have to reach. Baba said, you will be disappointed if you try to work for wages to get into heaven. We said that before. Do good deeds so that I can get into heaven. No, it doesn't work like that, brothers and sisters. Okay, so man arafa nafsuhu faqad arafa rabbuhu is the highest level where we need to turn to. And once we understand and we experience the true reality of our own self, automatically the significance of the life and the pursuit of the life changes, and that is when the true inner worship starts. Okay, purity needed in this path. Very, very important, brothers and sisters, extremely important. Okay, and I'm giving you the example of Gausul Azam Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jilani radiallahu anhu, his blessed father, Hazrat Abu Saleh Musa radiallahu anhu, and he was Hassani. He was from Mawla Hassan radiallahu anhu's lineage. He was one day, roaming around in Iran. He was traveling. He was a mystic himself, and he was very hungry. He had not eaten for days, and definitely, he he would not beg, but then because it was, the pangs of hunger, he saw in the river. He was close to a river, and he saw in the river a fruit, floating in the river. And he thought about it. He said, because the pangs of hunger, he said, okay, the fruit is just floating in the river, so what's the big deal? It's going to go somewhere. He picked it up and he ate it in the pangs of hunger. Then suddenly, when a little bit the hunger subsided, he thought about it. He said, oh my goodness, I don't even know where whom this fruit belongs to. So I have put something in my stomach which may be haram, because I have not worked for it. Think about it, the greatness, the purity of Gausul Azam Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jilani's father. So now he's panicking. Why? He knows that within 2 hours this food is going to get digested, and after some time, what happens? The food turns into blood and energy. He said, before that, I need to find the owner of this food. So he starts looking around the banks and finds an orchard, a little bit further along the bank of the river, and he says there are some of the trees, the fruit is hanging very close. So he realized that one of this, the trees, from one of the trees, the fruit just fell into the water, because into the river, because of the it became ripe. Okay, so he goes running there to the owner. And who's the owner? He's Hazrat Sayyid Abdullah Sumai radiallahu anhu. Now he is from the Hussaini family lineage. Okay, so both are Najm Tarfain, that is Hassan and Hussein, right? So for example, Gausul Azam Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jilani radiallahu anhu's father is from Hassani, and the person who owns the orchard is from the Hussaini lineage. Now he goes to Hazrat Sayyid Abdullah, okay, which is and he pleads to him. He said, please forgive me. I have eaten this fruit, and you have to give me some work. I have to do some work for you. You tell me whatever you want, but please forgive me, and I will do whatever work you tell me for the rest of your life, provided you say that you have forgiven me, so that before this, the fruit changes into blood in my body. Think about the purity. Okay, now what happens? This Hazrat is shocked. Why? Because he has not seen such a pure and honest soul in his lifetime. He says, no, 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 I'm not going to forgive you. I'm going to, you will have to get married to my daughter. Hazrat is wise. He knows that this particular qualities of a youngster like this, is rare. Is a diamond. So he knows. So he says, no, you have to get married to my daughter. So now he says, he has no option. Gausul Azam Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jilani's father, Hazrat Abu Saleh radiallahu anhu, has no option. He puts his head down and says, "Okay, I'll get married." He said, "But wait, wait, wait. There are some things I have to tell you about my daughter." "Oh, what is it?" "My daughter is deaf." "Okay." He said, "Okay. She's blind, she's dumb, and she's also lame. Are you still ready to marry my daughter?" He said, "Absolutely, as long as you forgive me." Ya Allah, as long as you forgive me, for I have eaten your fruit, and I will marry her. I have no problem. Okay, so the day of marriage is arranged, the nikah happens, and on the night of the marriage, he says, the father-in-law, now is the father-in-law, right? Hazrat Sayyid Abdullah radiallahu anhu is the father-in-law. He says, "Okay, that's the room. My daughter is in there, and you can go in." So he goes in. He goes in, opens the door, goes in. Now he knows. Ya Allah. Hazrat Abu Saleh knows that my wife is deaf. My wife is deaf and dumb. But it is a Islamic custom to say Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. He knows she's not going to hear it. Look at the beauty. Ya Allah. He says salam. Guess what? The mother of Gausul Azam Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jilani returns the salam back. The purity of Hazrat Abu Saleh Musa radiallahu anhu. He jumps out of the room. He runs out in panic. Goes direct to his father-in-law. He says, "I'm really sorry. I think I entered the wrong room." So what happened? He said, "Your daughter, somebody who's there, is a woman there. It's a beautiful. She's so beautiful as a huri. She's, I looked at her face. Please forgive me. There's some other woman in that room. And she said, gave salam back to me. I know my wife is deaf and dumb. How can she give my salam back to me?" So, brothers and sisters, Hazrat Sayyid Abdullah Sumay says, "That's your wife." And then Hazrat Abu Saleh Musa radiallahu anhu asks, "But you said my wife is deaf, dumb, blind, and lame." He says, "Yes, she is deaf because from the time of her birth, she has not heard anything which is haram. She is dumb because from the time she was born, she has not said anything which is haram. She is blind because from the time of her birth, she has not seen anything which is haram. She is lame because she has not walked towards haram." Brothers and sisters, we none of us will reach this level of purity. But again, this slide I'm putting or presentation is for my own self first, and then to the world, whoever wants to listen to it. So again, for the greatness of these blessed souls, Surah Fatiha for Hazrat Abu Saleh Musa, the father of Gausul Azam Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jilani, and the mother Khair Fatima radiallahu anha. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. So brothers and sisters, again, as we looked in the previous slide, we have to purify ourselves, the five senses and our heart and our mind. Nature of awareness, brothers and sisters, we're going to quickly go through this. Once we understand that we are pure awareness, the subject of awareness is awareness itself. Object of awareness, mind and body. Slowly and slowly in meditation, when we go deeper and deeper and when we merge into ahad, everything collapses. There is no subject, there is no object. Okay, because we leave connection with the materialistic world. Okay, and the mind becomes much and more weaker compared to the pure awareness. We saw the slide, right, where the red circle increased, the consciousness increased, and the negative qualities of the mind decreased. So man arafa, there is nothing to experience of awareness other than knowing that I, which is Allah, is behind the feeling of the I-ness behind within me. And that what happens in the meditation. When you go into your meditation, when you are calm, and then you ask this question, who is meditating? Who is the I who is experiencing this calmness of meditation? And at that time, the question drops into your heart, and from your inner heart, brothers and sisters, the Allah responds back to you, brothers and sisters. It is the most beautiful experience in your life. It's of my life. I felt it as where Allah says that I is me. That's Allah. That is the uppercase I, brothers and sisters. And that is when you know that Allah resides within your own innermost heart. Okay, Kalbul Momin Baitullah. This is where that becomes the kalb of the moment becomes the bait of Allah, right? So that is the inner Kaaba that we have within our own self. That is where the ahad happens, the oneness happens. Okay, question oneself in the deep meditation. What is the source of the I? We just talked about it within me. And once the mind becomes relatively silent, the Rahmah of Allah will pour in, and one day you will hear Allah speak to you. You know, son, that is me. That is me, the I which is within you. Okay, and we just have to go through the cleansing process, brothers and sisters. You know, Allah is within us waiting to be discovered. That is what the wealth, you know, I am this hidden treasure and wanted to be known, right? There's a hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that's the hidden treasure, that Allah is within us. The nur of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is also within us. Okay. And finally, brothers and sisters, who am I? What am I? This is just brush up. Am I the thoughts, feelings, sensations, perceptions, or I am just the aware of my thoughts? This is where we look at the mind and the body as a object. I'm aware of my thoughts, feelings, sensations, and perceptions. Who is aware of the thoughts or feelings and sensations? If I'm angry at somebody, then the anger takes over me. At that time, I have to refrain that and say, I'm experiencing an angry thought, not I am angry. That is where you distance yourself. Now the awareness comes in and says, I am experiencing. That means, I'm experiencing. That is, the thought is also an object. Anger becomes an object. And then you distance yourself. The I distances. Instead of I am angry, it becomes I am experiencing an angry thought. I'm experiencing a sad feeling. Experiencing a pleasurable feeling, or sensation. That is how you meditate and control. That's how you control your mind. It's a long process, because it's a daily thing, right? When you're going through this, knee-jerk reactions, movements in everybody's life, that is where you control yourself. And slowly, what happens? Your awareness becomes more and more strong, and then peace sets in, calmness sets in. That becomes your primary nature. Okay, and then you cannot be swayed by shaitan or situations from outside, or the shaitans of this world, who can come and try to disrupt you know your meditative way of life. Okay, you'll be much more wise of whom to deal with and how to deal with people. Okay, question to ourselves. I was 5 years old, I was 10 years old, I was 30 years old. I'm much aged more than that, but I know that the thoughts, feelings, sensations, perceptions, concepts have changed in my life as I matured through life. But the question I have to ask, did the I within me change? The I-ness within me, did it change? From when I was 5 years old, 10 years old, 20, 30, 40, 50, whatever my age is, did that change? Or that I-ness still remained the same? Answer is yes, the I-ness still remains the same, brothers and sisters. Okay, so I hope, brothers and sisters, I try to complete this as fast as possible. Um, let's meditate for a few minutes, okay, so that we can get something practical out of this presentation also. Okay, so brothers and sisters, if you're ready, please close your eyes, okay, and sit peacefully. You can sit in any posture you want, okay, whatever makes you comfortable. If you can keep your spinal cord as erect as possible, it is good. Okay, let's start by being aware of my breathing. Just be aware of the breathing. You are not controlling your breathing. You're just be aware that I'm breathing in, I'm breathing out, I'm breathing in, I'm breathing out. Now as I'm breathing in, I can feel the cold air which is touching the tip of my nostril inside. And when I'm breathing out, I can feel the warmth of the air which is touching the tip of my nostril. Just try to now slowly focus on the coolness and the warmth of the air flowing in, which is cool air, flowing out is a little bit warm air. Now let's proceed to the next step. Here, what we're going to do is we're going to take a deep breath inside, okay? And take a deep breath. As you take the deep breath, bring your head backwards so that your lungs or chest gets pushed outside. Hold your breath for 4 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out slowly. Okay, now that you breathe out, hold your breath for 4 seconds again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now you can resume your normal breathing. Just calm yourself down. Just watch your breath again. Okay, we're going to do this 2 more times. Just to make it a little bit more deeper. This time when you breathe in, close your mouth and breathe in from your nostrils only. Hold for 4 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4. When you're breathing out, breathe out from your mouth with a ha sound. Ha. Try to keep the breathing out twice as longer than the breathing in. When you breathe out, just hold there without breathing in for 4 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now you can take a break. Now you can breathe normally again. When you're comfortable, let's do it one more time. I'm going to breathe in, and as I breathe in, I'm going to tilt my head backwards so that the lungs gets filled up through the nostril only. Hold my breath. 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out only from the mouth. Bring your head down as you're saying the ha sound. Okay. Again, count 1, 2, 3, 4. You can now slowly come back and sit in the normal posture. Now you must have felt that your mind has become a little calmer now. Okay. Now let's go into the next step of meditation. Try to keep your eyes closed. We are going to try how to be in the state of being. Okay. This is the part of the meditation where, brothers and sisters, we are going to try to go beyond the mind. Now, Brothers and sisters, breathe normally. Even as I'm speaking, there is nothing you have to do, brothers and sisters. This is the wonderfulness of consciousness. Whatever resonates, resonates. Understanding is taking place naturally. I am simply here. I am present. Pay attention and just notice the sense of being. This is no big deal. You already in the state of being. The state of being is not going to come in from somewhere else, brothers and sisters. It's already here and you're already experiencing it. The reason why we doubt it is because most of the time we give our energy to paying attention to the mind, and it is as though the mind sucks all our energy and pulls it out into personal identity, and it sends us to all these journeys to do this and that. I have nothing to do for the next few minutes. I don't want anything from the world. I don't have to do anything in the world, and I'm in the state of nothingness. As I stay as I am, I do not touch any mind stuff, any intention, or any thought. I even discard the intention of waking up to the true self. I stay empty for the moment like this. I do not even try to become being because I'm already in the state of being. I will not get logged into the energy of the mind. As I notice, everything is nicely begun to slow down within my own self. I'm experiencing calmness and peace within my own self. I am just in the state of being. It is so natural, and because of it is so natural, we don't give importance to this state in our normal life. This state is so effortlessly natural. The mind tries to make me do things like I'm a spiritual doer. I have to do this, I have to do that. But I am in the state of being. If any thought pops up, let the mind chatter. Let the chattering go on. I will not interfere with the chattering, but I'll gracefully move my focus back to the state of being, and I will not engage with the mind. Practice this for a couple of few minutes more. As we said before, if the mind comes with a thought, let it happen. Just observe the thought and let it go. Bring your focus back into your sense of being. Slowly and slowly, the thoughts are becoming less, and I'm going into deep state of meditation. I may get a reflex to engage with the mind, but gradually and graciously I bring my focus back to the sense of being and just stay empty for the moment. I do not touch any thoughts or intention. Who is the I who is experiencing this state of calmness and meditation? What is the source of the I which is experiencing the source of calmness and meditation? Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah. So, brothers and sisters, slowly open your eyes, very, very slowly. Take your time, take 3 to 4 or 5, 6 seconds to open your eyes and just relax. So, brothers and sisters, this is just a meditative technique that I just shared with you, which you can use, some of the points from this uh, to get into the state of ahad. And as we discussed before, the kutub zikr is there, the way of life is there. The kutub recommends to not eat chicken, mutton, beef, all those things, try to become a vegetarian diet. And the details of that is in the Zabiya presentation. It's not because it's not allowed in Islam, but the true state of Zabiya is not there in today's world. And it's covered in the Zabiya presentation on the same channel. So if somebody wants to look at it. So brothers and sisters, I hope, this has helped you. And, finally, we go to the last slide, the experience of physical death. We conclude with this slide. It is up to us to make the experience of death the most blessed moment of our lives or the most traumatic moment of our life. It's our choice. What happens at the time of death, as we all know now, that when the body dies, it is the localization of the body consciousness, which is the body mind complex, the identity that gets dismantled, not the I-ness which I feel within me. The I-ness still remains. And only thing what happens that the I-ness which is identifying with the body mind complex, that's gone. The I-ness which is awareness of the soul remains. Okay, so I have still have the consciousness of I, but what I was invested in is the body and the mind and the greed and the self-centered pursuit of the world. And now in a stroke of less than a second, the molecule mouth has made that particular identity meaningless. But alas, what's the problem? I have populated my book of deeds with the self-centered, selfish pursuits of my identity in the dunya, and I will be held accountable for that. The separate, being separate from Ahad to satisfy the fellow monkey minds, the lower conscious people of the world who run around me, and I call it competition by trying to compete with them in how much to grab in the dunya. Compete for what? That's the question. For self-realization, definitely we should do it. For accumulation and then identification of what I have accumulated as, the body-mind complex, that particular self, successful person, right, is futile. Angel of death has to rip the soul of from the body for the people of the dunya, because this soul refuses to come out, because it knows the moment the body separates from the soul, whatever it lived for becomes meaningless within a second. For the walis of Allah, the soul jumps out from the body happily, which is because it knows it's going into ahad. So brothers and sisters, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us all to get into the journey, and we leave our body, the soul leaves our body in the state of ahad, inshallah. And my sisters, finally, the blessed mazar of Qutb Baba Muhyiddin radiallahu anhu in Coatesville, Pennsylvania. Fatiha for the Qutb. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. يهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.